Dudes, what up? Thanks for tuning into the Cinco Zone. Yeah, I just had a pretty sweet conversation with my buddy Josh. It was almost 3 hours, which is crazy. And I didn't have to go pee. That was insane. I even brought a bottle in case I needed to throw it at someone. I wasn't going to pee in it. I would never pee in a bottle. Come on, give me a break. Yeah, we had a... He just dumped a ton of information on UFOs and a bunch of different documentaries to look into, or to check out, I should say. Not look into, but to check out. Yeah, one of the ones that I'm very interested in watching is called Mirage Men. We talk about that. I don't want to give away too much. But, yeah, I plan on having another conversation with him. And, yeah, I don't want to lose that momentum. He just, I mean, it should have been the Josh zone. I mean, he just really... I don't want to say right from the get, but I mean he just let his hands go, as they would say in boxing, and I mean it was awesome. I mean, to me, it definitely wasn't a letdown. I enjoyed everything. I can't wait to listen to the episode again and take better notes, because yeah, I definitely want to research all the stuff that he brought up, because it's crazy. Battle of Los Angeles, not the film. Oh, God, I'm so glad we didn't talk about that. But, yeah, he brought up a lot of interesting stuff, and I'm like, oh, my gosh, I've seen that movie, or, oh, I didn't know that was because of an incident. So I really hope you guys enjoy it, and let me know what you think. I think I'm going to try to upload this to YouTube. I was I was uploading everything to SoundCloud, which has been awesome, but I've hit my peak, hit my limit on what I can upload on there. So... yeah, I'm going to try to give YouTube a shot. So if I can't upload it tonight, I will, you guys will hear it very soon. But I've noticed that every day I've been getting a play, at least one play, and it's just like, oh, man, you have no idea. It just makes me so happy to see it. And I've only sent it to like a few people, and it's just growing, and I love it. And if you've listened to the episode more than once, thank you. That means a lot. I wish I would have done this 10 years ago. I would still be in the same situation I'm in right now, but I mean, I wish I'd have done it. I think it would have been very helpful for me. It's very therapeutic, and I definitely enjoy it. I enjoy talking to my friends, and I think the goal is to bring somebody on that maybe I've seen on a movie or I've read about, and talk to them in person or whatever, on Zoom or Discord or whatever. But yeah, this whole thing has been awesome, and having Josh on for my third conversation with someone is amazing. I mean, I would have thought that it would have been later on, as it been, I guess, way more established or something, but it was perfect. It was a really good conversation with him, and I hope everyone enjoys it. And if this does go on YouTube, please, and I hate when people are like, hey, leave a comment, like, and subscribe. You don't have to. But, I mean, feedback is always welcome. And, yeah, thank you. And thanks for listening. Enjoy the show. When I first joined this band, dude, we played in, my parents were like, we had a house that had a basement. And it's like very rare in San Jose for houses to have basements. I mean, the only time you see a basement is if it's in a Victorian home. So like downtown San Jose is like all the, Victorian homes, and dude, they have like basements. It's like normal. But dude, like my friends would come over, and then I just lead them to these steps, and they're like, dude, what are we about to get into right now? What is this? It's like Saw or some hostile nonsense. And then we go in there, and then like they're like, what, dude? It was like a humongous studio. That's what it felt like. Right. It was huge. Like it wasn't just like a little pocket. And this band that I used to be in, dude, we practiced down there, and it was great. So like people say like, it's like, dude, I can imagine like being in a basement with the band. I was like, dude, I know that feeling, man. And dude, we used to record stuff with I used to have this old Sony digital camera. And I put it in the middle, and I would hit record for just video. And that Sony, dude, it would keep going until it ate up all the memory. And I think it was like, I was like so excited because I had a 1 gig memory card, right? Which is like nothing now. I'm like, I'm going to record everything. And dude, we'd like record like 3 songs, then I would put it on my Apple and cut it up, and dude, it was fun. I miss that. I miss that like raw sound where it's like,
I w-
yeah, I don't
I
know.
would literally I would pay. I think I'll be on the verge of paying to get like an old video camera. Watch somebody use an old video camera, right? I get a little nauseous with the whole. Everybody's fighting to have the best quality now,
Right,
and I miss the old '90s. Maybe because we're getting a little older now,
right,
and we sort of miss that. But I really would love to just have somewhere to go to just peek back at the time where everything was just raw, focused on the art, the quality, and the love of what you're doing,
right,
not trying to outdo everybody and you're thinking about the money. It's just you do it because you just love it and you have fun doing it.
bro. I think that's the reason why I can't get behind certain movies nowadays,
Mm-hmm.
because everyone's like, "Oh, dude, the Marvel movies are the best," and it's like, okay, dude, but what's real? Like, what Tell
Right,
tell me something in there that's real. And people,
right.
and it's kind of like a, um, what do you call it? It's kind of, I guess, wrong for me to say, because, dude, early on when the first Avengers movie came out, dude, I watched it and I was
Mm-hmm.
like, I fell asleep. My buddy was so excited to take me, and dude, I fell asleep in the theater. I thought it was boring, straight up, dude. And what's so funny about that, man, is like, uh, afterwards he was telling everyone, "Hey, man, this dude, my buddy Will, it was the guy that I had a conversation with. He goes, dude, this dude fell asleep. Dude, he sucks. He doesn't know anything about film. All these other movies come out, right? All the new ones, whatever, Endgame, I don't know what they're called. And then
Uh-huh.
I go, hey, can you go back and watch the original Avengers? He goes, nah, dude, it's too slow. It's boring. And I'm like, oh, okay. Was it? Was it boring? Oh, okay. So it was wrong for me to fall asleep at that time, man. But I think, and it even, dude, like what Mark and I were talking about with Star Wars, it's like
Right,
the first
right,
or the 1, 2, and 3, nothing's real,
right,
right? And
right.
it's like, dude, everything's just artificial. And yeah, dude, I miss puppeteering. I like physical things, and
Mm-hmm.
and I almost sound like an old timer, like back in my day, right? But yeah, it sucks. But everything's too perfect. Everything's too perfect now,
Yeah,
and I get where you're saying you want to go back to uh seeing like mess ups, and
puppeteering.
or yeah, exactly,
Puppeteering. Let's
right.
bring it back, bro. I want the
Dude,
dinos because to your point, 2 points about that when we talk about film is obviously with Star Wars, they recognized their mistake because they brought, when they went to which episode we've seen so many now, but when they went to the planet and that little really funny guy, right, was a puppet, right? He looked like a puppet.
right, right.
Where they had to wipe out 3CPO, the little engineer. Did you see that one, or you didn't get to see that one?
Wait, the engineer? Wait, let's go back
Yeah,
a little
so
bit.
there's a little tiny guy. I'm trying to remember. There's so many now. As much as I love Star Wars, you can't even keep track of which movie you're watching or which scene you remember a part from. But
Right.
there's a little guy everybody fell in love with. He was a tiny guy. He didn't speak English, but he was like Grogu, right? He was just this little tiny creature, alien, but he didn't look. It didn't look like it was CGI. He looked puppeteered, and that's when I just kind of like pointed my finger in the theater, like that's what I want, like right. I'm like yelling, like that's what I want. I want that puppeteering, that real feel. We can watch Sci-Fi Channel and talking about Sci-Fi Channel. I remember in Geek Squad, I used to just throw these crazy, horrible Sci-Fi Channel movies at you, and you
Oh,
would be like,
dude.
dude, I watched it.
Oh
I
yeah.
watched it.
100%. There's a reason why somebody signed off on it. There had to be like a group of people being like, "Hey, dude, shark, Santa shark or something random or
Right,
whatever it is,
right,
right?"
right, right,
And dude, I even throw
right.
movies at people that are like, "Come on, dude, don't mess around." I'm like, "Dude, it exists. I'm not playing." Like, there's Atlantic Rim, like the
Mm-hmm.
knockoff to like Pacific Rim. Dude, it is
Right, right.
terrible. Titanic 2. Come on, dude. Of course I
Dude,
seen it.
my parents love those stuff. Remember, they love it. Like, and when they're in the house hanging out, they would just play that stuff, and I would just griefly, walk by and just go. But I can see why they love it. Like you said, you're having fun watching it. You're just kind of pointing out all the crazy stuff, and you're laughing, and
Oh, it's
it's
so
it's
bad.
almost like it's a cult following. So yeah, I
Yeah,
definitely feel you there.
dude,
So
you'll
are we recording yet, or
Oh yeah, yeah, dude. We've been recording this.
okay?
This is all gold.
So
This is good.
jump in. Okay. Yeah, no,
Yeah,
I definitely
yeah,
know that's how you do. So
yeah. That's so
what I
funny.
like to do
Do it.
is before we go head in, I like to just kind of give everybody kind of like a feel of when we met, bro. I really wanted to do that,
Oh,
and I
dude,
always want to talk to you about how when we met, what it was like.
dude, I can tell you one of my very first interactions with you. I still
Tell
remember.
me.
Oh, dude, I remember it very well.
Oh
And
God, you
oh,
gotta
dude,
tell
I
me.
think I think the last time we hung out, I told you. And
Oh yeah, but I was drunk, so you gotta tell.
dude, that night
I
was
don't
so much.
remember
Oh, it
anything.
was so much fun, man. That night was so much fun. I was
Incredible,
talking to
right?
Mike about or Mike Mark about that, and he was just like, "Gosh, it just seemed it just dude, it was last year. It was last year in February when we all hung.
Every
It's crazy to think
I,
about that, dude. It was last February. Man, it's sad.
it was. I
That's
know. I know.
crazy.
So what happened?
Okay,
So what
okay.
happened the first time?
Because when I first started there, I was working in customer service,
Yep.
right? And dude,
Yep.
I remember it was you and Alonzo, and you remember how
hmm
like it was almost like front facing for the departments,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. And but then when you're dealing with a customer, we have our backs turned to each
Right.
other, right? Okay. So
Yeah.
I remember like it was front facing, and then I heard you guys talking about some stuff,
Uh-huh.
and I mean, dude, I was very intimidated when I moved to LA too, because I just felt
hmm
like everything was very clicky, and I wanted to be part of like
hmm
everyone's little clique just to hang out and talk. But I was like, ah, man. But dude, I remember you guys were talking about something, and I can't remember, dude. I can't remember what it was. I don't remember, but I
hmm
remember like I finally had my in because you guys were talking
hmm
about UFO. Some I can't remember, but then
Okay. Yeah.
but
Yeah.
I
Go ahead.
remember I go, uh, hey, what do you know about Travis Walton, bro?
Mhm.
Hey man, you know nothing about no Travis Walton. Did you walk? Hey, you stormed off. You got mad, and you were just thought I was just like frick. What do you call it? Poking a wound or something. I was
Don't
just
do that to me.
dude,
Don't do that.
hey, dude, I swear, you got so mad. You're like, hey, man, you know nothing about Travis Walton, and you walked away. Boom, you hit the flaps. Remember the divider things?
Yeah.
Boom, you go
Yeah.
in the
Yeah. Yeah.
back, and then,
Cold storage.
oh, dude, and dude, it was so funny. No, but it was great because it was just I looked at Alonzo, and I started laughing. I was like, what just happened? And then I ended up talking to you later on about it,
Uh-huh.
and I was like, hey, what do you know about that? And then, dude, that was like the first like this was like maybe months later, but that
hmm
going back to the whole Travis Walton Fire in the Sky, that was
Uh-huh.
like my introduction with you because we ended up having a conversation about it, which I want to get to
hmm
later because
Right.
we went
Right.
from Fire in the Sky, and then I can't remember the what we talked about, but you got pretty deep with it, and then I
hmm
remember telling you like I was like, dude, I can't go back and watch this one particular movie because it scares me. Even to this, dude, I think about it and it freaks me out.
hmm
And it's
Right.
Communion. And dude,
Right.
you lost your mind. You're like, whoa. I was like, dude, you're like, how do you know about that movie? I was like, dude, I rented it. I think my brother rented it. And
Right.
it's a
Right.
weird cover because it shows like, I think it shows like a city, right?
Uh-huh.
And then I don't want to say it's a silhouette, but you can see it in the sky, like an alien head. And dude, it's just
Right.
really freaking. I remember my brother renting it and just I don't remember what it's about. All I remember was Christopher Walken was
Right.
freaky looking, right? Because he just has like that.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah.
But then, dude, we talked about that for a little bit, and dude, those are the two movies that stick with me really hard about like UFOs and alien abduction and everything like that. Because those they just frightened me, man. Ugh.
So let me just kind of go back the same thing, right? Let me just kind of put it in perspective what it was like kind of meeting you. And I remember the first day. So like you said, so here's the weird thing we have to remember about that time. This is when they did sort of like a weird double Geek Squad slash customer service. Like we were like the same one and same. This
Right.
their
Yeah.
experiment.
That's right. Right.
So it was like you said, the cliquish. What didn't come from the fact that we were cliquish, it just came from the fact that it was like it was chaos, right? Where there was like a clear separation of everybody's job. It
Right.
was they were trying to break the silos. What they're doing now everywhere in IT, they were trying to do that. They were like, we're gonna break the silos. Everybody's gonna wear a Geek Squad shirt. Everybody's gonna be Geek Squad. So that sort of customer service was like uncomfortable with that, right? They just didn't
Right.
like that idea. And but you came in. So and I remember everything, like a photograph, and you're like, bro, I was in Geek Squad, and then I did that again. come on, man, you don't know about no Geek Squad, right? And I threw that, and I threw that at you, and
Right.
you were like, no, bro, I know Geek Squad, and I'm like, okay, right, and I
Okay.
kind of paused. And I just kind of paused and I kind of, just watched. And you got to remember, like, even in Geek Squad, we were all tough on each other. Everybody was tough on each
Oh, I
other.
bet.
It was
Yeah, yeah.
Shark Tank, Shark Tank. So, and I was like, bro, I'd love to see you get in here just to, see how you handle it, right? Because it was like, it was an opportunity to see who's gonna like kind of make it and who sticks over here and who kind of goes back to what they love and what they're comfortable with. And I remember when I started having a lot of respect for you, it was the way you joked, and the way you joke, and I'll tell you how you joke. You'll throw a joke, and then you'll creatively create a joke that goes over somebody's head, not laugh, and you'll just see who in the whole entire planet will react, right? And who will react, and then you won't laugh. You have a serious face, and I was like, this guy is like, he gets comedy. He understands it. He understands what it like. This is before trolling was even a thing. This was
Oh,
just,
dude.
you were like, one of the architects of that type of comedy. And I'm like, dude, this guy gets it. I need to really kind of embrace him. And I'm like, he's North Cal. Something's going on up there that
Oh, dude, it's the
really
water.
create solid. It makes these dudes solid. So when you came over to Geek Squad, it was a joy, bro. It was a joy. But you got to experience why it was so tense, why it was so tough,
Oh,
and
dude,
it made
yeah.
it made us better. It made us better, right? It made us
Yeah.
all really good at what we do.
Dude.
And I'm blessed. I'm blessed.
Dude, the thing that's so dude, you know what's funny about that is me being sarcastic got me in trouble quite a bit down there
Of course.
from
Of
everyone.
course.
Dude, I remember Vanessa just hated me because of it, dude. Dude, because I would just like, I don't know, man, I would say some stuff to her just to be silly, and I think everyone took it literally. Like I would, dude, I can't remember what I would say to her, but I would like tease her. And then Stephanie, dude, oh man,
Right.
I think she was the only person that kind of would didn't allow me to play that game with her, right? And dude, she was a tough lady, man.
Right,
She was intense. She was really
It was,
intense.
and I didn't know she was younger than me, right? Because we were just because of her job, right? She had to
Right.
play more of a leadership role. You couldn't really stay at that level where we kind of were, but it kept the tensity out of it a little bit, and that's something that you brought. You made things cool, right? When everybody was like fist cuffed and really just beads of sweat off our heads, you just come in and like throw in a joke, right? And it would just a little bit cool down, the core, and we'll just be like, oh, it's not that bad, right? And that's just kind of what you brought,
Oh,
and
that's tight.
I was like, you know what, I've got that too, right? And I was like, I got it too, and I was like, I'm gonna kind of do that with you, and then kind of doing that made everybody sort of be cool, relax. Alonzo was kind of already there, right? He was already an OG veteran,
Yeah.
doing that, and also doing his job at the same time. And everybody kind of wanted to meet that standard, and he had been there for years. But
Right.
it was just a pleasure working with you.
Oh, dude.
So everybody in Key Squad, it was nothing like it. It was to this day. What I'm doing now, I'm like, dude, it's. If I didn't have Geek Squad, I don't, I'd be like a lot of my coworkers and my peers, where they're not really, when it comes to human interaction, it's really tough for them to have it, where I'm like, this is nothing, bro. This is cool. I mean, the technical side, you really got to learn your stuff and know your stuff, but
Right.
as far as people and getting along, it's much easier because we're not under the scrutiny of a customer.
Yeah.
Literally the customer is trying to like pin you against each other, right? That was their job, where
I
he told
know.
me this, now you're telling me this, and you're like, no, my boy would never tell you that, right? I know my boy. I know Johnny's never going to tell you that. So that was just kind of like
Oh,
how we work together. That was a pleasure and
yeah,
an
man.
honor to really work with you guys.
Dude, and the thing that's crazy is I talk about you guys all the time. All the time.
Same here.
And I'm always like, dude, my friend's from LA, dude, like and dude, and I even told this to Mark. It's weird because I talk about you guys and then they have they don't have a clue on who I'm talking about. And I'm like, dude, you don't know them. It's weird, dude. It's weird, especially like some of the folks that I work with kind of tying everything in. I got them all listening to podcasts. The majority of them, dude, they would listen to music and then they'd be kind of burnt out. And dude, hey, no joke, because I listen to like comedy podcasts, and dude, with type of work that I'm doing, dude, I can listen to it all day, headphones and just
Right.
working. And dude, I'll just be like laughing in the corner like a freaking psychotic man, dude. And like my managers come over. Dude, my manager would walk into our lab, right? And she goes, "Hey, we lost like, this or these optics or whatever it is." And then,
Right.
dude, as she's saying it to my lead, bro, I'm in the back freaking losing it. And
Oh my God.
and it's like the worst timing because then she comes over and looks
Mhm,
at me, and then
mhm.
and I'm sitting on the ground like working on cable and like, "Hey, what's up?" And she thinks that I'm like laughing at her, but
Think this
anyway,
is a game, right? Yeah,
oh,
yeah.
dude. So I got everyone tied in with podcasts, and then um more and more like they're like, "Hey man, do you know any like trippy ones? Do you know anyone like with like Bigfoot or like UFO stuff or whatever?" And I'm
Mhm.
like, dude, and at the time I don't think Joe Rogan was really putting that many people on his
Right, right,
show.
right.
But then like when Bob Lazar came out, that was like the big one when he started interviewing
Mhm.
him, and everyone's like, "Dude, that's crazy! I want more." Da, da, da. It's like, oh
Right,
boy,
right.
okay, yeah, man, it's crazy. That's why, and
So,
I told him about you
mhm,
and our conversations, and I didn't want to spill too much because I wanted
mhm.
you to say your part. And dude, it was so long ago when
Right.
you told me the stuff that you were talking about, and I was like, no, dude, we gotta have we gotta have a refresher because dude, I remember we talked. It was, and I'm so glad it was a slow day because I remember we
Right.
talked almost like for almost all the way until lunch, dude. You were just
Mhm.
going on a tangent. But yeah, man, it was crazy.
And you know what? You're one of the few people, and that would just kind of like let me unload because some of this stuff, not necessarily, it doesn't make me intense, but I would go. The way I work is I'll go 3 months hard, right? Just going hard. Like some of it's review, but some of it kind of expands on it, or there's details that adds to it, and I'll just be so full of like I feel like I'm gonna explode, and there's no one to kind of let do that with. And then you just go, lay it on me, man. I'm here, right? Because like you said, there weren't any really podcasts for that.
No,
So if you don't mind, what I'd like to do really quick is just kind of explain. So there's kind of context
do it.
how I got into this.
Yeah, that's
So
exactly what I was gonna ask you.
so what I have to do first, I have to really thank and appreciate my mom.
Yeah,
That's where it all started. I mean, it's before I can even remember a time. I don't think there's a time I can remember where I didn't have this passion. And the reason why is the earliest thing I can remember is my mom having a conversation with me. And things were different, right? It's the 90s, it's the early 90s, and I'm really young. I might be 5, 6, 7 years old. Really where my daughter is now, and she's getting the same, right? So she's
hmm.
getting what I got, same age. So I remember my mom saying, like, hey, keep your imagination open, right? I mean, this stuff is, and you got to remember, this is when Sightings was on TV.
Dude,
Like you said,
I wrote that down. I
Sightings. We'll get to that.
yes, oh man,
Fire, like you said, Fire in the Sky had just been released, and
oh man,
it was being advertised as true story based on true events. So everybody's going. It's like the second 1950s after Roswell. The 1990s was the second phase, if you will, because you remember the Phoenix Lights was going on. So all of this is going
whoa,
on, being constantly fed from so many different directions that my mom is just telling me, like, look, be open to this stuff because I'm not going to sit here and pretend like adults, as a kid, you're like, adults know everything. And just
yeah,
kind of breaking it down to me, like, adults don't know everything. We rely on kids to have the imagination and the lack of ego to not care what people think and go hunt this stuff down. And she's telling me, as a kid, I didn't really get it, but
hmm.
I kind of got it. I got what was necessary. And I can tell you, I'll give you my favorite childhood alien movie to put things into perspective. It was Earth versus Flying Saucers. So
Whoa,
that's a very, very old movie, right? It's 1956. So, it was before my time, but it felt like it was made for a kid almost. And it
hmm.
just kind of just enthralled my imagination. So by the time, so let me kind of fast forward. So by the time I was a teenager, I was one of the youngest kids. When I was 12, 11, 12 years old, we had You had a computer. This was Windows 95, Windows 98. This is before most people had any interest in having a computer, right?
Right.
Before cell phones were computers. This was just, you had a computer in your house and you had a 56K modem. That was my main. But at this point in my life, I was, still very fascinated and loved UFOs. Despite what was kind of going on in the world around me, I kind of kept that soft spot. So I would use that, the internet as a place to kind of escape, and it really messed my sleep. Because what I would do is I would live during the day as a normal kid, then at night I would stay up all night and just kind of, that was my thing, kind of just search the internet 1.0, if you would, for UFOs. So if we weren't watching sightings, right? I remember being terrified. Do you remember being terrified as a kid watching sightings?
Dude, I don't remember a lot of the episodes, but I remember the intro. And I remember the intro,
Right.
the theme song was like freaky. That's what I remember. I was actually going to look that up, but I was like, oh, dude, I better leave that alone. I might pull something out that's going to freak me out.
we got to follow up on sightings. But the thing,
Man.
like you said, there was one episode I remember that terrified me more than anything that stuck in my head, is when there was a family who said they were being, not just abducted, but whatever the gray was, would walk through the door or the wall, but not the scary part wasn't just them, but their warning. And their warning and their prediction was like, hey, there's going to be earthquakes, volcanoes, and all that, wars, all that stuff that would, terrify anyone. They're warning this family that you need to get away from this. And the family is like, we moved way out to the desert to get away from it. I think that terrified me more than the actual, UFO incident. So as I became a little bit older, 14, 15, 16, I would just be on the internet all night. And there's actually, I still have evidence of me. I call myself the oldest millennial ufologist. And the only reason I say that, you can find interactions with me on a website called abovetopsecret.com. And there's interactions with me just kind of, I'm on there like, hey, what do you guys got? Come on, where's your stuff? Bring evidence. We need to exchange info. And this stuff kind of really became a part of me. And I was doing it before it was known to be quote unquote cool, right? Before it was like, hey, this guy's edgy. By the time I became an adult and was kind of like filled with all this information, and it was kind of like at the back of my head, I started to have my own experiences. It was like nothing, because, when people were like, dude, when somebody would come out and, like you said, you would watch somebody walk up and be like, hey, what you guys know about Travis Walton? I would have that reaction, right? Because I'm like, don't come in and tell me about no Travis Wells, because it was the only reason why is because I had such a deep, and the analogy I gave you was, you walk up to a guy who's read every single comic book, right, ever, Marvel, DC, doesn't matter, and you're like, hey bro, let's talk about comic books, and he's just gonna be like, don't come to me talking about this, comic book guy from The Simpsons. He's gonna be like, don't come to me with that, right? Like, unless you're really ready and you've gone past the level 1 boss, the level 2 boss, don't even. And not to say that I believe that I'm that type of person, but it's just that so much passion. It's like, bro, are you really ready to have a 5-10 hour conversation with me about this stuff? So
yeah, man.
But I appreciate you having that sort of interest. You dive in, even if it came from movies, right? Giving you that intro, like all of us, that's really where it started.
Oh, film for you.
Film. That's where it starts. Well, for everyone, I think film has to play a part.
Oh yeah.
But definitely Unsolved Mysteries, right? They always had great episodes, Unsolved Mysteries, sightings.
Even their intro too, man. The Unsolved Mysteries was so freaky. Ugh.
I still watch it. All the old episodes.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it's something very calming and relaxing about it now. But back in the day as a kid, I would kind of be a little bit terrified and, like you said, creeped out.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I was gonna say, going back to your film. I mean, I think for me, being a little kid, like getting introduced to like aliens, or it was. Now that I think about it, it's not Fire in the Sky or Communion, dude. It was the Twilight Zone.
Right.
That was like my intro of like a flying saucer and everything else, and I was like, whoa. Mm-hmm. It's just it's weird.
And Zoe would agree with you on that, because Zoe loves to talk about
dude. That's
Twilight
we
Zone.
bonded over Twilight Zone and boxing, dude. Dude, going
Exactly.
back to what do you know about Travis Walton? I was gonna say, dude, my breakdown of it is when somebody comes up to me and says like, "Hey, do you know Manny Pacquiao is gonna fight Evander Holyfield?" And dude, I
Right.
lose it, dude. That's like, dude, that doesn't even make any sense. Come on, you're not ready, dude. You're not ready.
Right. Right. Don't
Yeah,
even try, bro.
yeah,
Yeah, exactly. But same passion, same passion.
yeah, man.
So let me ask you this. So, it's hard for me to put myself in the shoes of a noob, if you will. It's not completely hard,
Hmm.
but some people have asked me, like, where do I start? And my honest, my thought is, do you have a time machine to go back to 1993, right? Because it's like there's so much out there. There's so much content out there.
Yeah,
When you get into whatever you get into, if you're in it in the beginning, it's easier to get through all this information because it's not as much. So as more it comes gradually, it's easier to expand from there. But if, like you said, you come in when the end game comes out and it's like they're like, hey, where do I start? And you're like, bro, you've missed so much. How do I
yeah,
even tell you where to begin? And with UFOs, there's so much. And what I like to do is so my passion next to UFOs have always been history and philosophy. So I can sit and talk about, historical wars just as long. I love talking history.
right.
But I learned that if I embed UFOs into sort of that historical context of what was going on, it can help people understand why it's worth taking serious, why it's worth having an interest, and what we can sort of kind of picture for the future. Because we always kind of look at what's going on right now is the most important thing in history because it's our time of living. We're experiencing it. So I think for us to have a really good breakdown, we have to look at it historically.
Hmm. So where when did it really take off?
So I know you're aware of everybody's aware of Ancient Aliens, right? You watch
Yeah.
History Channel and you've got the guy with the crazy hair, right? And he's just making you laugh, die laugh because he's just on there talking crazy. They're making crazy money because, they're on TV and they're just throwing out all these crazy ideas. Well, a lot of it started with a guy named, and he's on the show a lot. If you've ever seen the guy on there with the blue jacket named Eric Van Daniken. And in the 70s, he released a movie and a book called Chariots of the Gods, right? And he had a follow-up one with that. But he was the guy who came in who just pointed at almost everything and said, these paintings on the wall, aliens, right? These big carvings in the ground, oh, they were for aliens, right? And it became a thing for everybody just to kind of jump in who was into aliens to just kind of jump into it and go, he's right. So for me, I took a step back and I said, you know what? There could be some things, but let's not sort of over invest ourselves for people who can't speak for themselves.
Right.
They're gone. Unfortunately, we can't have an interview with ancient people and ask them what they mean by this.
Right.
Nonetheless,
Right.
it's fascinating.
Yeah.
It's fascinating. So I'd recommend anybody who wants to kind of have an interest to, by all means, look into it. Uh, Watch Chariots of Gods, Ancient Aliens, season 1, 2. Sometimes it almost feels like they're kind of repeating things after a while. I mean, how much, can you really talk about? But it is what it is. But you have to really have if you want to learn about it, not become overwhelmed, just do a timeline, chronology. So when we talk about modern incidents, right, we want to start talking about what happened as early as we can, think about from America terms. And I think I want to kind of tie in movies because for
Sure.
people who love movies, there's always a movie for some incident. And I'm gonna start with one you would never ever guess. And I think you've seen this movie. Have you seen Aliens and Cowboys?
I did. I watched that. Yeah, I remember watching it when it first was able to be purchased. I didn't see it in the theater, but I did see
Right,
it.
right.
Right. Dude, I
So
Go. I don't ask me if I remember anything, but dude, I it's like asking if
But
I
you get
seen
the
Wild
point.
Wild West, right?
So that is actually based on the incidents known as the Mystery Airship sightings between 1896 and 1897. Um, so what occurred was there were a series of events, and they were all over like newspapers, especially the West Coast and the East Coast, of people seeing sort of these airships with strange configurations, wings, propellers,
Wow.
pilots, and so forth, and sometimes interacting with the pilots and reporting them. Now, to kind of put some context to it, there was a lot of quote unquote hoaxing going on. And they had sort of these, what they call Liars Traditions Club. These kind of part of sororities and fraternities kind of did this weird thing back in the day. So it's not to suggest that all of this was just factually real or even try to push it that way. But just to put it in context, it didn't start with Roswell, right? You're always going to look at some point in history and people are going to say they saw things flying in the sky, and I talked to them, and in some weird cases they felt like they had some sort of abduction.
Right.
But I think to start with Aliens and Cowboys, just to kind of be funny with it, there was that movie when it first came out. I was like, no, they're not going to go there, right? They're not going there. They went there, and I had a lot of fun with the movie, but it was, of course, exaggerated. I think they were like literally having gunfights with the aliens. But the point was that if anybody wants to learn a little bit more about how that was inspired by, was called the Mystery Airship sightings between 1896 and 1897. So look that, you got to look that up, and you'll have a lot of fun with it. I recommend a YouTube channel, and this is out of everything, this is coming from somebody who's seen it all, right? There's a YouTube channel, and this guy does a wonderful job of with illustrations, not just talking about it, not just, showing something that with below average quality. This guy actually pays illustrators to, illustrate these videos and give you visuals of what he's talking about,
Yeah.
both historical clips and things like that. But his name, the channel was called Think Anomalous. And you can look it up. Maybe if you go YouTube, Think Anomalous UFO, right? It'll, whatever I'm wrong about, it'll fix. So it's a beautiful channel. I definitely encourage everybody to check that out if you want to kind of start getting aware of some of these events. The next event, chronologically,
There it is.
that you want to look at, thank you,
You're good.
is Battle of Los Angeles, which occurred within 1942. The thing about Battle of Los Angeles that is so strange, and there's a movie, right?
Oof, dude.
you seen? Have you? Did you see it?
Oh, dude. Same dude. My buddy Will and I.
Uh-huh.
Dude, we went to go see it. We went after work, bro. This dude was reading a book on his phone. And then I was just like, dude, what is this movie about, man? This is freaking terrible. Dude, it was so bad.
It was so bad.
Oh.
It was the quality, the production quality was good. You can tell they spent a lot of money on it, but you were like,
yeah.
dude, what is going on? What was going on?
That was a tax write-off. Ugh.
It was. But dude, one of those sci-fi channel movies. But anyway,
yeah, you're right.
They made a sci-fi channel version of it. I remember seeing that too. It was crazy. So but the real story is what occurred was on it started on at night in February 24th in 1942. As we remember, this is right after, this is right after the Pearl Harbor attack. So
oh wow.
Americans are on edge, right?
Sure.
They're on edge. They're like, dude, we don't know. They were bold with the Pearl Harbor attack. So the mainland in California, we're here. We're just out here. So in the evening of February 24th, there had been reports of something in the sky, right? Something massive in the sky. So the military, they had already set up sort of the coastline defenses. They began to kind of look for this thing, and there were thousands and thousands of people sort of calling in and just kind of shutting down the switchboards and trying to report that they're seeing this craft fly through the West Coast.
Yeah.
And I believe it started from Santa Barbara, and it just kind of moved through, got to Los Angeles, and it got all the way up, I believe, to San Francisco, Oakland area. But I could be wrong. The But I want to kind of focus in on the fact is that this caused such a disturbance that people died, right? Because
Wow.
they began to the United States Army began to fire at it. They wanted to kind of see if they can take it down. It was assumed to be a Japanese attack, but they had never shot this thing. Nothing was shot down. Nothing was recovered. There was no evidence for an enemy that had been, disarmed or killed. So, it there were 5 deaths. Two of them actually, nobody was shot. There were 2 heart attacks. So, you got to imagine people were really,
Oh.
messed up behind this thing. They thought, they had no idea what's going on. They thought they were dying. And if your heart is not well, this type of stuff, you're not ready. You can't deal with that. 3 car accidents. So 3 people died in a car accident. So it was 5 deaths as a result of that incident that occurred from February 24th to 25th of 1942. So if you want to focus in on how this stuff sort of gained traction in the United States, you have to look at Battle of Los Angeles, because it was reported not as aircraft of enemy, Japan enemy, but they thought it was metal. They even shined lights on this thing, and they tried to, when you're trying to shoot anti-aircraft guns, you have to want to put lights on it so that you can aim at it. So there's a famous Los Angeles Times picture that one of the journalists got of that craft, being focused in on by all of the spotlights. So it's probably one of the biggest well-known incidents in UFO history.
Wow.
So that's 1942. So we haven't even got to 1947, the Roswell incident. So things are picking up traction. So let's kind of just think about, like we said, what's going on in history. World War II is in full gear. Everything's going on, and there was questions about the German Nazi military having access to much more advanced technology than the United States.
Right.
We know this to be true because they had been, developing the first nuclear atom bomb. They were but they didn't have the type of the heated water, what they would call, I think it was called hot water. I can't remember exactly the term that they used, but they didn't have enough of it. They had to create it up north somewhere. And there were, secret, this was back before, secret spies and secret agents were really a thing, and special forces. These were all new things, but they were stopping them from creating this bomb before it was too late. Because we all know, if Germany had eventually developed and prepared and manufactured an atom bomb, world history as we know it, the entire paradigm would have shifted. So they were stopped just because it was just so difficult for them to do it. But they had the technology. But not only that, they had the first jet propelled fighter.
Right.
And as a result, and the funny thing about it, it wasn't as effective as planes of the time. It was too fast. It was incredibly fast. It was often shot down by regular propelled airplanes, but it made its point that the Germans are scary. These guys are developing, you know what I mean? Like, these guys are developing things, technology that
they're like futurists.
They're already up there. They're way ahead of us. And I mean, if you look at a lot of their tanks and the quality of their military, the MP44, their guns, they had some of the first machine guns. They had some of the best everything, because they focused on quality, they focused on innovation, they focused on ingenuity, that everything was just coming out of there was incredible. So in addition to that, they had the V2 rockets. So the V2 rockets were actually being fired into England. So all of these technologies, and finally what we get to is that there are rumors and there are reports from retired military, high intelligence, naval intelligence, that the the Nazis were developing actual now we're gonna go a little bit into the rabbit hole here. Just gonna touch it a little bit because if I go to do this too early, people can go, "Oh, that's too crazy." But these are retired naval intelligence who talked about the German military having access to not only UFOs, but they were engineering some type of fleet, some type of space fleet.
Whoa.
And the issue with this is that it was just going over people's heads over the time. What I mean is spies, because spying became a big thing in World War II, especially with the British. The British were some of the first, and the also, of course, I mean, the Russians became really, really good at it. But we were getting information about what was going on, and and I want to get the name. I'm kind of mad at myself for not getting the name ready. The name of the Naval Intelligence Admiral who headed a project to figure out what this was all about. So this is when you hear about Nazis in Antarctica, right? Having bases, having secondary places to stage whatever they wanted to stage. So he was one thing he said. I need to get his name for you and for everyone else. He was saying that he didn't want normal scientists to kind of help him investigate this issue, because more normal scientists are going to go, no, this is ridiculous. This is like science fiction. This is comic book stuff. We're not going to play. He said he needed people who were just going to be like, you know what, let's go. Let's go figure this stuff out.
Right.
But there was a claim or an investigation that showed that these guys had engineered regular submarines to be ships. And I'm not going to be the guy who tries to prove that this stuff was real, because there's not a lot of information. There was, I think, just a few sources. They were naval intelligence guys, really old guys who are like 80 years old, 90 years old, probably passed on by now.
Yeah.
There's a couple of, if you want to know more about that, I believe Unacknowledged. I think that it's Stephen Greer's, and everybody knows Stephen Greer's. In some ways, I think he's just got some way out there ideas, right? And I'm not going to try to be an authority over it. I'm not an authority of the subject, but nonetheless, he's got I think Unacknowledged is the name of one of the latest documentaries where they get an interview with this guy, and he talks about knowing more about this German UFO. They have been in contact, and it gets to take you a little bit more down, just to give you a touch of the rabbit hole. The reason where they got this is there was these secret society based people that Hitler was in touch with, who said they had sort of this psychic interaction with certain aliens to kind of get this information.
Oof.
And turn this information into something to be placated into something real. So the names escape me because these names are always hard to. I believe it was a part of Theosophy, if I'm thinking about it right. But I would have to go back and get that information too. A lot of this information, like I can write all the notes I want, but it just keeps going and keeps going and
Right.
keeps going. But the idea was that this is what's going on in Germany at the time in the 1930s. So, and then you start to ask, reasonable questions, like if they had all this stuff and they had been so successful at this stuff, why were they, eventually conquered? But I mean, of course, one of the reasons why they tried to go to war with literally everybody.
Right.
And I don't care what the quality of your gear is. You couldn't outproduce the United States, who had the resources of an entire continent, and still go to war with everybody else and then Russia at that, right? Who was also a massive country with just millions and millions of soldiers just to kind of at their disposal. So I just think the world was just too much for Germany, regardless of even speculating that they had access to this kind of technology, if they did.
Yeah.
So then you start going into the next phase, which is kind of like Roswell, right? What happened at Roswell? Of course, we know it as when there was a reported crash of what they called a saucer-shaped craft, crashed in Roswell, New Mexico. and there were parts around the surrounding county. And the first thing was that it was reported, of course, as a real a flying saucer. Was, they reported this from the what was called the Army Air Force at the time. It wasn't just called the Air Force yet. So when they reported this, it was reported as we found a saucer, but then they redacted that and came back and changed and said, no, we didn't catch the saucer. It was, a weather balloon.
Right.
So there was just sort of there was this chaos going on.
Right.
Between what's going on there. You guys can't figure out what happened, but of course you could blame some of it on damage control. You can blame it on anything, but nonetheless, we know that's when things really started to go into gear. But also, right before that, you have the Arnold UFO situation. So that was in the Kenneth Arnold UFO sighting. That was in June of 1947. So this is right around that same time, where there was a private pilot named Kenneth Arnold, that he claimed that he saw a string of 9 shining UFOs flying past Mount Rainier at speeds of like minimum of 1,200 miles per hour. So that was the real first post-war UFO sighting. And let me just throw in, while I'm talking about it, the Foo Fighters. I think there's a band called Foo Fighters, right? There's a rock band called, they got the name from the reports of UFOs during World War II, whereas Allied aircraft was reporting objects like, flying saucers next to their fighter squadrons, and, just seeing all kind of way beyond them technology. So whether that's, you're pointing to, sort of the Nazi technology or something else, Foo Fighters were definitely a part of the UFO phenomenon during World War II. So you can't forget that. And that was also a part of the Robertson panel. And that goes into Project Blue Book, Project Grudge, all of those investigation projects that were going on during the time. So all of that leads up to Roswell. So for people who are already interested and already were rubbing their chins regarding this was easy, right? This was like, dude, this is just the next thing. This is building up. So going into the 50s, the Cold War is about to kick off, and paranoia is just going through the roof because, everybody's wondering this battle of ideas, the battle of science, because if people aren't aware, Operation Paperclip had kicked off in 1946 or 1945. And Operation Paperclip is when the Allies won World War II. We were declared the victors and the war was over. Germany surrendered. Well, what do you do with all of these scientists who had all this knowledge? They had all this funding. What do you do with them, right? There's thousands of them. So they had a deal. Russia, United States, and England, UK made a deal. We split them up, right? We split them up. But the issue was Russia got more, because I don't know if anybody is aware. Russia actually, they conquered Berlin. They got there first. The Allies were a little bit behind on it, so they got the biggest meat, right? They got the biggest pick. So, but we got Warner. I want to say his name correctly. He's one of the most famous physicists ever, which was Werner von Braun. And this kind of captures when the space race began. So this is a war of ideas and a war of technology. So who's going to get there first? But you have to remember, we had the atom bomb first, because we had the Manhattan Project, Los Alamos, where a lot of that UFO stuff is, all that desert, Nevada, New Mexico area stuff. What we have going on is a race between Russia and the United States to have something going on in space, but also a race to the hydrogen bomb. Oof. See, the atomic bomb was like already, becoming old news after, the war was over.
Yeah,
that was dial-up, right? Mm-hmm. So with the hydrogen, everybody racing toward the hydrogen bomb, you had this sort of this fear just overcoming everybody. In the 50s were just I can't imagine. Honestly, if you're a boomer, I give it to you because you lived during a time when you were terrified every single day of your life that you were just going to be wiped off the planet without even knowing, right? I mean, it's still there. There's always that chance, but this is when it was fresh. It's like
Right.
pandemic, February of 2020. It was fresh. Everybody was just terrified. So I give boomers a lot of credit for just being young children who didn't really understand why. But this was really a serious situation.
And dude, we
Oh,
should really think about that too. I mean, if you think about it, I'm like, what was their news source? A newspaper? You know,
newspaper,
that
right? Right.
maybe television, possibly,
Radio.
or radio, right? And it's
Yeah.
great. And then maybe even like, um, I guess maybe people's imagination running wild in terms of like, oh, what do you call it? Almost like lying, like making things up. Who
Mhm.
knows? But dude,
Well,
I can't even imagine just only having just two resources in terms of just
well.
information. That's crazy.
So if we're going to talk about that, and it's important, you've also brought up another important event, which was the 1938 radio drama, "The War of the Worlds," which was by H.G.
Yes.
Wells.
Yeah.
So, and he did exactly what you said. He
Yeah.
freaked out a lot of people, and it
Yeah.
wasn't funny.
No. Dude, people killed themselves or got scared or whatever.
There was,
There was
gunshots.
deaths.
It was
Yeah.
panic. It was
Yeah.
just, and the way it was. Here's the thing. It was they were told at the beginning that this is a radio drama. This isn't real. But
Right.
if you just kind of tuned in right after,
Oh,
that
dude.
disclaimer didn't matter, right? They're
Yeah.
not just telling you frequently throughout the broadcast that this is just a TV show. They were just being told that this is real. So it caused panic, a sheer panic, and that's just to your point. If your sources aren't really wide and options aren't really many, you're just going with what you got. And like you said, it was just a very a crazy situation. So, my hat goes off as a history obsessed guy. My hat goes off to people living during this period,
Oof.
really trying to ingest and filter information as what's real and what's not, and what do we worry about and what do we just kind of continue on with. So yeah, and I made a note and I said, the, the paranoia of the Cold War. You didn't think that the United States was going to change. The 1950s was about defending the American dream, which was, this is what we have. We won World War II. We're the victors, but also Russia was the victor. So it was this war of ideas. And by the time the 1960s popped off, clearly there was just political upheaval all over the place. So we know that the 1950s after World War II was just a very uneasy time and nobody liked it. It really got to people. It caused people just to change their entire perspective. And I'd like to, if I know that it kind of jumps forward, but I think this is one of the most important quotes that we have to point out. Now, let me know if you recognize this quote. I want to see if you
Mm.
recognize this quote. And it goes, "Perhaps we need some outside universal threat. Our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world. And yet, I ask you, is not an alien force already among us?" This was September 21st, 1987. Do you know who said that?
Ooh, September 1st, 1987.
1987.
Oh
Yes.
man. Uh, I don't know. That might be the Reagan era.
That's Reagan. That's your
Yeah.
president,
That's
Reagan.
it,
He
dude.
said that. He
Wow.
said that in a speech to the United Nations General Assembly. Now, what he was referring to, he was making an analogy for what's called, they call it MAD, mutual assured destruction. So, it's, or also which he described as a suicide pact.
Mm.
He was saying, we've got these hydrogen missiles, right? We've got these hydrogen bombs. We have intercontinental ballistic missiles. We've got submarine, launch ballistic missiles. The Russians in the United States, they're all ready to go. Anybody can press a button, and there have been close calls where, false alarms, close calls, where people were told on each side, launch, and they didn't do it because they hesitated and they said, well, if I do this, it's it. Well, it's
Yeah.
my job, but let me confirm. Like that movie, like your movie, bro, Crimson Tide, bro. They're sitting there fighting over, do we do this or not? So
Yeah.
this is something Reagan was really, really afraid of, and his analogy was that this
Crimson
problem
Tide.
is so new and so scary that you compare it to aliens, bro. This is like so beyond us. We've never dealt with this. It's unprecedented to have to deal with something like this. That's clearly, alien in nature in terms of just something we're not prepared for.
Right.
So Reagan started the Strategic Defense Initiative, which they also call the Star Wars program. What he wanted to do is he wanted to fund ways to knock nuclear missiles out of the sky. And the SDI is still going on to this day, and it's still a international political problem because it's we do it a lot in Europe with our allies. We place these things that will help us knock things out as they're being fired, and in different places in Western Europe. So it's still to this day considered a lack of trust, a lack of handing out a hand in peace and friendship. So there's always going to be sort of like this, not Cold War, but it's always going to be this tension. So that just goes back to we've always faced these threats, and we start to ask ourselves, if what about UFOs?
Mm.
Well, you have to speculate the way they're kind of, if they are there, right? They are interacting with us to some degree, that they will speculate that there's something like this nuclear MAD, mutual assured destruction. It's like, dude, these humans they're going crazy. They're isolated. When I say we're isolated, we don't know what else is going on in the galaxy in terms of life. We're not a part of this galactic, like Star Trek, where you could just kind of reach out, have somebody come in, help us out, kind of be a mediator. All we got is ourselves. So it's like, a family in a house fighting. There's nobody coming in, busting in the door, saying, "Hey, guys, stop fighting." It's just us. And we're going
Yeah.
crazy from this isolation. So I think we really have to sit back and think about that too. While all this is going down, 1940s, after Roswell, you have Eisenhower. Do you know about just who Eisenhower was when he became president? Do
No.
you know anything about him?
Mm-mm.
So Eisenhower was a 5-star general. And we have to remember, you don't just become, they don't really use 4-star is really the highest that you're supposed to be able to go. So to be a 5-star general, you're like, field marshal. You're a guy who just kind of commands the entire military. So after World War II, he warned the United States against the military-industrial complex, basically feeding our entire productivity to our military. He warned against that. He said, things are going to get out of control. And I remember my dad. Every time I say that, my dad goes, "Yeah, but he was a part of it." And I don't know why it just cracks me up every time. The point being is that he warned us that it's just getting out of control in terms of technology being used to feed into new ways of killing each other. So
Right.
there is a UFO incident that's called the Eisenhower UFO meetings. So it's suggested that Ike Eisenhower, when he became president, I don't know if I pointed that out, but he did become president. And there was, this is when Area 51 had first been, had really started being used as, or being mentioned, and it wasn't called Area 51 at the time. But he had heard, and this was during the Roswell, period. But then 1954, he was vacationing in Palm Springs, California, and that's when it's said that he went to meet 2 extraterrestrial aliens. But
Wow.
we have to kind of pop in is that first he wasn't being told about what was going on according to rumors, and he started getting pissed, bro. He started really getting angry about it. And if I remember correctly, what he said was, "I'm gonna get the military, and I'm gonna come bust in there and just kind of just throw tables, right? If you don't tell
Yeah.
me what's going on."
Sure.
And then that's when they briefed him. So that's when we start really talking about the military industrial complex and really being integrated into sort of this alien phenomenon, these ETs, if this were to occur, assuming, begging the argument. But it suggested that he met with two aliens, and the weirdest thing that came out of this, right? And I really like this. Is a very interesting context. Is that they were one of the deal was that they would give us more technology if we were to disarm nuclear wise. It was just too much. And from what we know, or if what we can assume, is that he said, Eisen said, no, we're not giving up. We're not going to do that. We're not going to go that direction. And there's always been sort of a talk about the trust factor between ETs and the United States government, and certain parts. Of course, it's very compartmentalized. I hate to say I'm one of the last people who will say the government, right? Because it's so compartmentalized. You're like, what part? Congress or Pentagon?
Yeah.
There's so many different parts that you could get into that it's ridiculous just to say the government. I will never say that. I don't like to say that because it oversimplifies the way secrecy will work, and it makes it unbelievable. Because people say, you can't keep things secret. Yeah, and you really can't if you have to check with a bunch of people. But if you have the ability, all you have to do is report to this person and to that person. It's much easier to sort of, you don't have to. I mean, there's sometimes I goof off at work, and as long as I only have one person, I have to, even though I have all these people, executives, bosses, I only report to one guy. I can, it's very easy to kind of do what you want. So, yeah, man, this is what's all going on at this time. So, and we got the Space Force today, and think about it. We're like, dude, Trump's coming up with this Space Force stuff. Look at everything we just talked about.
Yeah, right.
This is all kind of leading up to it.
Yeah.
Did you see? Have you ever gone to the Space Force website?
Dude, I haven't. No.
When you go to the Space Force website, this is what it says. This is maybe your purpose on this planet isn't on this planet. The U.S. Space Force is a military service that organizes, trains, equips space forces in order to protect the U.S. and allied interests in space and to provide space capabilities to joint force. USSF responsibilities will include developing military space professionals, acquiring military space systems, maturing the military doctrine for space powered, and organizing space forces to present our combatant commands. So, although of course it's a little, they're being, they're being quirky just to sort of get everybody interested. I mean, we want people to join. It's part of the Air Force for now, but. Let's take a second.
You think you would join something like that?
For one, I'm too old, right? I probably could.
What if there was no what if it was like whoever? It doesn't matter.
No, and the only reason I can say no is because at this point, when you've been exposed to this sort of information your whole life, the best thing I like to do is try to represent myself. Right. I don't know what sort of agreements are if something were to occur between ETs. And I'm not saying with everything I just read, we're not assuming that that's for ETs. Like we're going to blow up some ETs. We'll get to that in just a second. But just to answer your question, if we're talking about if this was for ETs, no. I'm concerned. I'm very concerned. It's one thing that we know today that if you join the military, it's to protect, you feel like you're protecting your interest, your cause of your country. That's what you go for. And when you come back, you feel good about everything you've done as far as what you believed in terms of our country. So, but with aliens, that's a little bit different, right? It's like, we're representing the United States against another planet. It gets a little bit weird. So I kind of want to slow down and really, really be able to represent myself in a way that I can say, hey, man, I don't know if I'm a part of that. I don't want to get zapped by, messing around, just listening to somebody else. If I can have a word first, I'd like to have a word first. So,
yeah.
But speaking about Space Force, do you remember an event that occurred, and it was all over the news, of a guy named, his name is, let me just tell you what he did. He hacked NASA. Do you remember this?
Not Not Snowden. No, Snowden did hack NASA.
No, it
No,
wasn't Snowden.
I don't know about hacking NASA. No.
So his name, there was a kid, not kid, but there's a man named Gary McKinnon.
Mm-mm.
He's a citizen of the United Kingdom, right? He's from the United Kingdom, or Scottish. He's Scottish. He's a system administrator. If I wasn't part of the IT like I am now, I would never even know what that was. But he was also considered a hacker. So in 2002, he was accused by the United States by perpetrating the biggest military computer hack of all time.
Wow.
So although he stated himself that he was just looking for evidence of free energy suppression and a cover up of UFO activity and other technologies, they demanded that he be extradited to the United States to face penalties and legal action.
Right.
But yeah, the United Kingdom they refused, so he was never sent for
Wow.
what he did. Yeah. So you might ask, well, what did he find anything? According to him, and I would suggest everybody kind of look into him, and see what he says. What he said he found was a manifest, and he said he saw a manifest of sort of like a space fleet.
Oh shoot!
So,
Like ships or just parts?
or just people who
Oh
were
shoot!
a part of a space fleet. So this is what he said he found.
Oh
So which was interesting. This is NASA, so I don't know what to make of it. We can only go based on what he's seen, and he's only seeing a small part of like a bigger picture. But
right.
nonetheless, it's a very interesting story. So you gotta YouTube this guy, you gotta Google it, and kind of look into what he found, and kind of make and interpret for yourself what you believe about what he really found. I mean, you'll never know. All you can do is you can speculate. But when we talk about disclosure, let me give you a name of my favorite person when it comes to talking. And for anybody who doesn't know, disclosure is when you kind of give up all the goods, right? When will different government entities, Pentagon, other we have the ATIP, which is a big thing right now. People are seeing in the news that in 180 days with that new, it wasn't just the coronavirus package or just the stimulus package. It was the entire funding of the government. So that's why it was so big just recently.
Right.
So a part of that was that the latest UFO task force is supposed to get it, which was funded partly by the CIA, but of course by Congress, certain senators, to give a report, a briefing on what they've found. So, and when we talk about disclosure, my favorite person who gives one of the most, I think, even-handed explanations of how disclosure works, and it makes a lot of sense. His name is Grant Cameron. You've gotta Google this guy. He
Grant.
has videos.
Grant
Grant,
Cameron.
yeah,
Okay.
Grant Cameron. You've got to Google this guy. And let me just kind of summarize for you the way he says it. And in this book that he has, I don't even know if the book is good, but I've seen him he's done, he goes to conventions and he does really incredible talks if you can find them on YouTube. So what he says is, many people think the government is about to disclose what it knows about UFOs. Many people think the government is doing everything in its power to keep UFOs a secret. The truth is those who control the UFO secret are doing neither. The secret keepers are gradually disclosing this information. And he says, based on advice given by military think tanks who've looked into the issue. So essentially, from what I've heard, and the first time I ever heard them was listening to Coast to Coast. Have you ever heard of Coast to Coast AM?
Yep. You're the one that told me
Great.
about it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I didn't know anything about that.
My dad put me on it many, many, many years ago. I think I was about 18, 17. He was like, dude, UFO kid, come here. I'm like, what's up? He's like, hey, listen to Coast to Coast. That's going to be for you. So I'm listening to it and I'm like, dude, this is, I would get on every single night, scour the internet looking for stuff and just listen to that in the background. And one day I heard him and I was listening to him, and the way he kind of, broke it down was like, what they would do is, they'll allow somebody, like say an agent, to say, hey, I knew about this. And then what they'll do is but he'll be retired, right? And then they'll say, well, he's retired. He's speaking on his own accord. And so they'll do is they'll give something and they'll take it back, right? They'll let somebody tell you something that was officially a part of this government entity at some time, but then they kind of backpace and say, no. He's just, he's speaking on his own. There's no way to verify this is not official. And he says not only do they do that with, people who come out and say things and give interviews, but they kind of do it with movies also. So I'm not sure if people know, but the movie Independence Day, for example, they had real military advisors helping as technical advisors to make that movie.
Wow.
It's technical advisors. So, and that's common with these sort of themes. And there's one way to think of it. It's not just because, they want to get information out there.
Yeah.
But a lot of these movies are sort of recruitment tools, right? I mean, it gets you kind of excited. I mean, clearly some of these movies kind of made me, I always said I was going to be a fighter pilot when I was a kid. That was really my thing for many, many, many years. And it wasn't until I was probably about 15, 16 and I realized I don't want to die in an airplane that I changed my mind. But my entire life, I thought I was going to be a fighter pilot. Because these movies are made, and they're made in a way to make you excited about it. So It's not just about that. But Grant Cameron makes the argument that, they do it that way. They kind of ease things in. They put a little bit of salt of truth in things so that over time, people become accustomed to it. Gradually, people are easily able to accept it. So, and Grant Cameron talks a lot about Tom DeLonge. And I know, bro, we got to talk about Tom DeLonge for a short moment.
Bro.
What do you think about him?
Great musician. Phenomenal guitarist, man. Awesome.
Plays really well. Plays really well.
But give a shout out. Actually, I have a buddy named Tom, and dude, that's like his boy. Dude, he loves Blink-182, but he idolizes Tom DeLonge, loves him, and when he went, dude, I even in his songs, I mean, he has a song called "Aliens Exist," and I think he has like a UFO tattoo. Like I want to say he was like, or he still is. He's deep into it even at that time.
Right.
When he went on Joe Rogan's podcast, dude, I remember my buddy Tom I think he was in Georgia. He was visiting some family. And dude, I was like bugging him, like, dude, it hasn't uploaded yet, or I'm trying to see if I can get a, like an early listen or something, even a clip. And dude, after I listened to that whole thing, I just tripped out. And the only thing I've talked about this with my cousin, and this is one of the things that I said about you, and you've never pulled this card on me. I mean, if anything, you've kind of circled me with this. Like if I ask you something, I'm like, "Hey, where can I see UFO?" Right? Like you would, if it. I mean, that's kind of like a dumb question, but like you've never ever said to me, "Dude, look into it," or "Hey, I can't tell you." Right? It's not, and to me, as soon as like I ask somebody like, "Oh, dude, tell me about the Mandela effect," and then they'll be like, "Oh, dude, just look into it." As soon as I get that, dude, I shut down. I'm like, okay, this person just really doesn't know what's happening, right? And dude, I get that a lot from a lot of I don't know, from anything. Oh, dude, look into it. Oh boy, here we go. But with DeLonge, he just I don't know, man. I just think that he asked. I don't know if he got asked to go on the show, or if he was or if he pleaded to go on the show. But I personally think that, dude, he got torn apart, man. I think, and my buddy Tom says, he goes, dude, Rogan was being a bully. And it's like, it's not that he was being a bully, but dude, if you're going to go on a show and there's millions of people listening, and like if I were to ask you like something about like, hey, tell me about, what do you think about all the UFOs being brought up just recently within this year, or even last year? What do you think about that?
Right.
And if you're to be like, oh man, it's crazy, but I can't really give you too much information about it. It's like, dude, what is this? So it's, I mean, I don't know. But then one thing I was going to bring up later, it also, and I watched this last night, but I was going to talk about it later, but it brings me up to a Twilight Zone that came out in the 80s, and the episode's
Mm-hmm.
called Need to Know. And
Mm-hmm.
dude, the first part of it is this guy and he's fixing his car, right? And he's fixing his car, and all of a sudden he closes the hood and he sees another person in front, and he goes, "Hey, what are you doing out here? This and that." And then the guy goes up to him that was in front of his car and starts whispering something into his ear. And dude, the dude starts screaming like a madman, but
Mm-hmm.
like laughing and screaming. And the whole
Right.
episode is about somebody giving secrets, the meaning, right? And
Mm-hmm.
I even wrote it in here, and it says like the one of the quotes in there was one the main character is like, what what are you telling these people? And he's like, the meaning, man's purpose, destiny, life after death, God, devil, existence. And he's like, and it's
Mm-hmm.
simple. He goes, let me tell you what it is. And the guy's like, dude, he's like, get away. And he didn't want any part of it. But it all has to do with knowing too much,
Right.
right? And if you know too
Right.
much, dude, you're gonna go crazy.
Exactly. And I think that's based on what I think you're reflecting on what I said the other night, right? And you were asking when we were talking about some of the things we can bring up, and I said, the thing about him is this. I don't know if he pretty much everybody who's a part of the community goes. He really took a risk in making himself sort of that guy, that contact. Hey, bring it to me, and I'll be willing. And then it's like, bro, you're not giving yourself that freedom anymore. So
Mm,
now you're going to look crazy because now you're trying to play both sides. You can't play both sides, right? You can't go, hey, I'm going to, go get the information for you guys and bring it back, right? Because I love this subject so much. You got to
right.
enjoy the freedom of not having access to classified information, because once you come back, it's just like you said, you're going to be like, I can't talk about it. And it's like, bro, don't try to play both sides. Don't try to be the guy who's just trying to be even and try to help everybody, because now you're hurting yourself.
Right.
You look crazy. And I want you to really compare. It's just sad. It's gonna get a little dark for just a second. There's a free documentary on YouTube, and the reason why it's so I feel that sort of the doomy feel about it. I just watched it last night just to prepare for today.
Oh boy.
It's called Mirage Men, and the reason why it kind of hits me is because this goes back to what I told you when I was on the internet 15, 16, 17 years old. I bumped into this situation. So what happened was the Mirage Man is about a government operative named Richard Doty, and his job was part of every secret uh, classified program. You need people to protect that information, make sure that information doesn't get out. Right? They
Right.
have people who are assigned to that. Well, what happened was there was a businessman by the name, and this reminds me so much of the situation that we're talking about now. It reminds me so much of that situation, and it's by a guy named Paul Benowitz. He was a businessman who lived, I believe, in Phoenix, and this was during the 1980s. And he was in the military. He was a veteran, but he was doing really well for himself. And he was a businessman he was very smart, right? This guy was incredibly smart.
Right.
He would build things and sell it to NASA, right? He would build equipment and sell it to them. So this was his business. Extremely successful guy. He was doing well, but he had a house that stood over a military base. And he was seeing certain things that was going on over the base that kind of really caught his eye, and he kind of looked into it. So he started building sort of these tools to be able to kind of figure out what it was like, really like radio intercepting equipment. So what happened was he was just trying to be a good American. He calls them up and he's like, hey, I'm I'm seeing some stuff, just want to let you guys know, what's kind of going on. So they put him in touch with Richard Doty, and that was the worst mistake he ever made, because Richard Doty's job was to confuse him, because his job was to protect the real program. But what ended up happening was they drove this guy Paul Benowitz insane.
Oh
This guy
wow.
who he had a great life, great business, but he and Richard Doty is the star of the, he's retired, is special agent for the Air Force, but he was, he's he the star of the entire interview. And he tells you how he drove this guy insane, how he would just be like, he would tell him like, bro, I think you're on this some aliens, bro. I think this is aliens.
Whoa.
Put him in a helicopter once, and they flew around a mountain and said, and where did you see the lights? And he's like, over there. And they took him to over there to the area, and they had debris, and they go, oh my god, this is a crash UFO right here. Oh my god. And they would just kind of fill his head up with all of this, and it was making him believe that all these things were going on. And there's two interviews with Richard Doty. There's the one where he's talking about disinformation in his job to disinform people and confuse people, and that's the Mirage Men. You can watch it on YouTube. But there's also another interview he does on Stephen Greer's channel. So when you look him up, look for that one, where he talks about, he goes, not everything he was saying was crazy though. Like, I would go into his house when he wasn't there, just to kind of screw with him. Right. And we would see some crazy stuff going on, like stuff that we couldn't explain. So I'll leave that up to everybody, but it's the same situation where you're kind of playing with fire, bro. You think that you're just going to bring you're young, full of energy, full of ambition, and you're going to go in there and like screw with this situation that's much bigger than you, much older than you, and you're just going to come in and rock everybody's world. It's not going to happen like that, bro. You don't play with that.
Mirage
it's
Man.
Dark.
Oh,
Mirage Man. It's dark, bro. I can't lie. I teared up a little bit. Let me tell you why I teared up. When if you were to find my posts on this website going back to 2004, it was about the Dulce base, and the Dulce base is exactly what we're talking about. So it was New Mexico. So I'm correcting myself. And it was about Paul, and I remember the name Paul Benowitz was the guy who was kind of spreading this information, but a lot of it was coming from Richard Doty. So I'm getting the information back, in the early 2000s, and he was getting that information in the 80s, and he finally died. I can't remember what year he died, but it's so dark. It feels so dark because I was kind of like a part of it in a way, right? Because I was, I was clicked into this stuff, and I was like, dude, I remember this. I was trying to get more information about it. I was trying to figure out if this is real, and because this was around the Arch of the Mesa. So this is where an old Indian, area, Native American area was, that where they would say, we saw stuff too. We saw stuff too. So you got to watch that documentary if you really want to look into, like you said, how people end up like your boy, where you're just hyped into it, but you don't know that you're playing with fire, bro. You never know. Enjoy that freedom.
Scary, man. Dude, it's that Twilight Zone episode, man. Seriously, dude. As soon as you get that info, it's gonna drive you crazy.
Nuts. and I'm blessed that I've never gone out of everything. I can go for days. We're gonna have more episodes in the future, right? But
100%.
We've got to do this. But just giving you the piece I'm giving now, right, is nothing. But there's other things, and I've always kept my collective, not going into the rabbit hole with my mind and going, oh man, there would be times where I just, it would just kind of follow me everywhere, and I think about it all day.
Yeah.
But it would be more about just the passion, about the love for it, but never about, doing things that'll make me think that something's going to happen.
Right. Damn, dude. You know what? I'm probably going to have to re-listen to this whole thing, and I've been taking notes this whole time just so I can research it and even though I hate saying it, looking into it, right? I mean, especially with this documentary, Mirage Men, sounds crazy. I'm definitely going to check that. I'm going to have to check that out.
I teared up, bro. I teared up the way they did him. I teared up, and I was like, dude, why did they do my boy like that? You know what I mean? Just like, why did you do him? Like, he didn't deserve that. He didn't deserve that. And if your boy isn't careful, the same thing can easily happen to him. He thinks he's, got everything under control. He's a part of this. Like, bro, don't play around, bro. And remember, there's also, I don't know if you've ever heard of Phil Schneider.
No.
So Phil Schneider is another one where he claimed that he was in around the same sort of situation. He was in an underground UFO base, and he claimed that he had a firefight, and he became one of the biggest stars, one of the pop stars of ufology, when he claimed that he was an engineer and that he, was uh, in a firefight and 3 guys saved his life. So this all just together with the Benowitz sort of story. They're not related to each other, knowing each other, but it's sort of that same story where he claimed that he was a part of this whole weird situation. And yeah, if anybody wants to know about the Dulce situation, just research Dulce base, Officer Costello. Man, it gives me chills thinking about it in the 90s when I was just a kid, just kind of reading up on all this stuff and going, is this all going on? Right? And it was just, when you go into that rabbit hole, you're like, is it possible? But it's like, you had Philip Schneider who came out and he has several interviews in their old school. I love the quality, old school interviews with the VHS quality, dude, where he's just talking about how he had gotten his hand shut off. He definitely had, some, but who knows? Definitely no proof that how he got him shut off. But Philip Schneider was a rock star in ufology for a long time, and he also died under mysterious circumstances, declared suicide. So then it takes you to Bob Lazar, right? His boy John Lear, who was an actual test pilot for the CIA. So John Lear, he's not a dumb guy. I had an opportunity to talk to him once, and that was a pleasure. It was on a he frequently went on to some of those websites and just talked to people like, hey, talk to me, bro. I'm here, right? Like, what do you guys? And I would just kind of ask him a couple questions, nothing deep, but it was just fun to really talk to somebody about that. And shout out to rest in peace to Stanton Friedman. He hated Bob Lazar, bro. He hated him. Like, he was one of his biggest critics. Stanton was an actual physicist, so he was like, I cannot find any of his
Stanton Friedman.
Friedman. He's a ufologist. He's more of in the Alan Hynek, category, like legitimate, bro, like 100% legitimate. You want to know what I think about Bob Lazar? Just give you my.
Well, you know what that was actually gonna be my. Just so you know, and so everyone listens, dude. I want you to spill as much info as you want. I'm trying not to do any type of interruptions on you because I know you get into a flow, and I just don't want to be like, hey, so what do you think about the lights? What do you think? Do you think there's a halogen in it? I don't want to do any of that stuff with with whatever you're saying. So it's like, that's why I kind of just want you to, dude, just go ahead, man. You're good. But with Bob, go ahead. I just did it right now. You see that? Wow. Go ahead.
But I want you to do that because it helps me because there's so many things that I can skip over. You're helping me jump back to things like, oh my God, you reminded me. So do that. Definitely do that.
Well, go ahead. I was going to ask you about all the whistleblowers. It seems like there's been a lot of people popping up on, like on podcasts and saying with the Tic Tac videos and Bob Lazar was kind of the first one. Actually, no, the first one was, I watched a documentary a long time ago about, what's his name? Fire in the Sky. We said in the beginning.
Yeah, Travis Walton.
Yeah, Travis Walton. I don't want to say he's a whistleblower, but I mean he's telling his experience. But with Bob Lazar is like the first person that I've heard of that saying that they worked on certain crafts and then they kind of erased everything that his existence, I guess you can say. But what do you think about that?
Right. So I'll give it to you this way, and I've had many years to think about this, right? So he's been around since the 80s when he first out and really talked about this. I'll just give you what's fake, and then I'll give you what's true. So I do believe that he is lying about his education, and the reason I think there's two reasons I think he's lying about his education. Number one, because he already lied about it, right? And I think he has to kind of keep up that lie. But second, I think it's sort of an ego thing. Like when you say, I'm not a physicist. I don't have all of these degrees, but I ended up in this situation. It's very hard for people to believe that. Stanton Friedman said, why didn't they ask me to come be a part of it? He's a real physicist. So here's the thing I think happened. I think that, and he was, he did end up in the newspaper of Los Alamos for building a rocket car. He was going to school at the time. What I think occurred was they said, look, this guy is nuts, right? He's going to kill himself. And if he's going to kill himself, I'd rather him kill himself screwing with this stuff back here. And you know what? if we allow him to mess with this stuff and touch this stuff and he screws something up and he dies, nobody's, number one, he's nobody's ever going to ask,
Right.
he's screwing with crazy stuff already. And if he goes and tells everybody, nobody's going to believe him. He's not accredited.
Yeah.
So it's a really safe situation. That doesn't mean he's not smart. I don't have a ton of education, but I'm in a position where I'm with guys who have PhDs and stuff, and I work with them side by side. I just so happen to be blessed to be in that position. I think he's the same sort of situation. He happened to know the right person at the right time. They squeezed him in. He got to see some crazy things, and he was very young and stupid and started blurting his mouth, especially to like John Lear.
Yeah.
And it screwed him. And he's trying to convince everybody that he got screwed, which he did, but you're not telling the truth about the reality is that you don't have the education, and it's fine. I would believe you regardless, bro. Things happen. People get in, people get hooked up, right? People get opportunities, and they're not always fit for the job. And he talks about this. I've watched probably every single possible Bob Lazar interview that there is, and almost everything that he claimed to date, as far as not actually being UFOs, has been verified. The hand scanner that he talked about and he described has been verified, right? The place that he went has been verified. A lot of things he would not necessarily know unless he knew somebody was blabbing to him, right? He's right about. So I do believe he's experienced these things, but I think he is lying about his education. That's the best way I can put it.
Dude, so definitely not a fan then. I dig it. Or do you think?
No, I love him. I love him. I think he's great.
I mean, he's part of the whole the history of it, which is cool.
Right,
yeah,
right.
Yeah, that's crazy, man. Oh, dude, that's crazy.
I just got to point out one thing. So because of him, number one, more whistleblowers came out.
Sure.
Right. Everybody, before I forget, everybody has to watch Serious Disclosure. That's Stephen Greer's, again, that's his project. And this is where he interviews everybody, people who are somebody, people who have actually have they were a part of the military. They did work in the military. They did work for NASA. They did work with these projects. These are legitimate people. And they all go on record talking about what they've experienced. And some of them have experienced some incredible things. But one of the most important things for anybody who really wants to go down the rabbit hole when it comes to UFOs and what it really produced, you have to research Project Aquarius. Now, Project Aquarius leads into Project Looking Glass. And what's really, I think, is just really funny about this being a rabbit hole more than anything? If you Google Project Looking Glass, you don't see much, but you will find something if you look around. So Project Looking Glass, oh my God, it's so fascinating. This is out of all my years, my lifetime studying this, or being exposed to this, my favorite of all of them is Project Looking Glass, because it kind of goes into what people are talking about now with quantum mechanics. And this is before quantum mechanics and quantum physics was a big thing, right? I mean, it's always been around. Even all the top scientists have always been talking about it. But as far as like really taking this in and talking about things like, so Project Looking Glass is essentially when they had UFO technology, when they acquired it, they had the ability to look into the future. And what I loved about this, it wasn't your cheesy. I'm not going to hate on Doctor Who. Number one, I think it's really good. What I'm saying is, it wasn't your cheesy TV type of explanation. The way he explained it sent chills through my spine. When he went, and the guy who, I'm not going to give the name, just I'm going to let everybody have some fun. Look into Project Looking Glass. When he explains, he says, we could see into the future, but it wasn't the future. It was the possible outcomes of the future. So he would say that, we could see things, but it wasn't. There were ways that you could change what you were seeing. So we didn't look at it as we're seeing the definite future, but what you were seeing as possible outcomes of the future. So if anybody loves time travel, Doctor Who, and UFOs all together, this is purported to be all that, and the real thing. And if you really want to kind of have fun with this, you got to do Project Looking Glass, Project Aquarius. Blows my mind. I'm gonna post a link to you, and if anybody like comes to you and they need help, and this, to me, this is sort of like a egg hunt. I don't know if anybody's gonna find this interview, but if people are like, dude, I couldn't find it, you got to give it to me, I'm gonna give you the link, and I'm gonna kind of ruin the surprise for everybody, and I'm gonna let you give it to whoever wants to have it, because that's one of my prized possessions. It wasn't easy to find. Like, this is from me having to save like all the sites that I save over years. Sometimes I even have to save sites that have gone down through what they call that web archive, the Wave Back Machine, when they do a cache shot of websites that are gone, and you can kind of look at them that way.
Oh,
Sometimes I have
dude.
sites like that are just gone.
GeoCities.
So, GeoCities, bro. If you have, some of this stuff is gone and it's not accessible anymore.
Yeah.
And you got to just know people who have access to things. If you just really want to go down the rabbit hole, so definitely you got to get into that if you're definitely into it.
Hey, have you ever, or let me ask you this: did something ever pop in your head of like a site that you used to go to, and you don't go to anymore because it doesn't exist, and maybe you thought about it recently, and you're like, "Oh my god, dude! I can't believe that. I used to go to that site all the time."
Mm-hmm.
Do you have anything like that, or do you still remember them all pretty well?
I made sure that I saved them over the years, especially the most important ones. Some of the names of sites I remember pretty well. It's because I obsessed over them so much when I was young, right?
Right.
But a lot of those sites have changed, right? Some of those sites have changed and they've updated. They look a little bit different. But if I look at sites like Jeff Rents, that's general conspiracy stuff, but it still has that old school look. I still like looking to that site. I don't even look at, there's this guy named Kenton, and he's passed away. And that's the reason why it's not updated.
Oh, wow.
But his family was like, look, if you guys want to look at this, we're gonna keep up the site for you guys. I'm not sure if it's still there, but that's one of those sites that have that old school 1.0 HTML look. And it's just beautiful. It's beautiful. You're never gonna get anything like that again.
You gotta send me that. I want to see that.
Yeah, you definitely. Oh, I gotta point something out to you. An incident. We were talking about movies. Do you know the movie, bro? Since you're a movie lover, we gotta point this one out. Keanu Reeves, The Day the Earth Stood Still.
Oh yeah, of course. I love the original. Like I love the original.
No.
Forget the original for a second. Because I always thought it was a long Twilight Zone because it freaked me out when I was a kid.
Right. That's my mom's favorite. That's my mom. She loves that movie. But Keanu Reeves, though, bro, did he do justice?
I don't remember it.
You know,
I don't remember. You know what? And now we're talking. Well, let's see. Convince me to make me go back and watch it. Let's hear it.
No, I have nothing, bro. I hated it.
Oh wow. Okay.
I hated it. But like you said, the original, incredible.
Dude,
but it's based on a real.
That was a total curveball. I was waiting for you to get deep with that movie. And you're like, no, I hated it. I'm glad you don't like it. Oh, okay.
The original was incredible, but it's based on a real incident. I encourage everybody to look into the name Valiant Thor. Now, when I say it's based on a real incident, I don't know if it's based on a real incident, but it's based on real ufology lore, if you will, right? It's based on an incident that was suggested to have taken place in the 1950s. So this is going around during the 1950s when there were UFOs around DC. And I'll point that one out. But Valiant Thor. There's a book called Stranger at the Pentagon. And it's a story and a breakdown about an alien who came down just like the movie. And I love the way they kind of break down what he did. It's just so inspiring to say, he came in and he would, they tried to make him stay in in a room, right? And he would just manipulate minds and make people think that he was, somebody else and walk out.
Wow.
It's so cool. Even if you don't believe it, right? It's still a great story. Valiant Thor. So everybody who's listening, if you don't listen to it, please don't ask me. Don't say hi to me.
Stranger from Pentagon, right?
Stranger from the Pentagon.
From the Pentagon.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Definitely a great story. Even if you just do, a short YouTube on it, you've got to love that, because we have to remember there was an incident in 1952, and I don't know if you ever watched the hit show on the History Channel, Project Blue Book, where they kind of, did you watch it?
I didn't, dude.
It's so good. It's so good.
Project
I
Blue
love
Book?
that show. Yeah, they just, they took Alan Hynek and they and one of the colonels that was with him, and they turned it into like a drama action show, miniseries. It's got 2 seasons, I believe.
Okay.
But there's this one episode that was so special to me, and they reenact the UFO incident in 1952 in Washington, D.C. So what happened was there were UFOs over the White House and over the Capitol, and this happened, right? Let me just kind of read just one sentence. It says at 11:40 p.m. Saturday, July 19th, 1952, Edward Nugent, an air traffic controller at Washington National Airport, is also today known as Ronald Reagan, spotted 7 objects on his radar. The objects were located 15 miles southwest of the city. There were no known aircraft were in the area. The objects were not following any established flight paths. And Nugent's superior, Harry Barnes, and senior air traffic controller at the airport watched the objects on Nugent's radar scope. He wrote later, he knew immediately that there were very strange situation existed. Their movements were completely radical compared to those of ordinary aircraft. So you have, Think Anomalous has this whole event on his YouTube channel. Definitely got to watch it. You can go forever just kind of breaking this whole situation down, but they did send off, military aircraft to try to intercept it because, of course, this was, invading restricted airspace. So, and this was going on during the whole Blue Book, the Blue Book time, the Robertson panel, which was the CIA was kind of had their own panel to review the Blue Book, which was an Air Force project. So, it's the situation was just out of hand, right? This is the 1950s. It was Cold War.
Yeah.
Things were just going just psychotic, everything was just out of control. So this happening was just, everything reached a peak. So the show Project Blue Book, one of their episodes, when it gets to the peak in the middle of the season, when they got you in, they got you hooked on the story, they show this event happening, and they just do it total justice. I almost teared up watching that episode. Somebody who loves this and has a passion for this subject sees this event being played out, for TV in such a beautiful way. Just so exciting, and it really did justice to like me spending my whole life in a passion for this thing. So definitely look into that 1952 Washington D.C. UFO incident, and that's when everything just came to a complete. It was just psychotic, bro. Because it's one thing for you to see UFOs everywhere else, but when they're in Washington D.C. over the White House and over the Capitol, it's next level, right?
Is that was on the History Channel?
Yes, the show Project Blue Book is on the History Channel. Now, it's kind of loosely based on the real Project Blue Book. They got some real good stuff in there. If you're in the spy stuff, they have spies in there. It's so good though, and they really play out all these real incidents that really occurred, and for you, so you to be able to have some exposure to them and know about them. So what I wanted to do, if you don't mind, was just list a couple of incidents for a list of incidents people have to go and look into. I say everybody just go to Think Anomalous, because he has some of the top incidents there. One of my favorite is the Ariel School landing, UFO landing. So this is in Zimbabwe in 1994. Or where the whole school of little kids, they were in an elementary school in South Africa, had UFOs land, and aliens came out and really messed and scared the crap out of kids. Some of the kids weren't scared. This is a real incident, and it ended up, and the kids, ended up growing up. Of course, they're adults now, but a lot of them, they still do interviews about what they experienced as a kid. So you've got to know about that incident.
Whoa.
There's the Flatwoods Monster, which was this big, robotic thing that was in, I think, Flatwoods, Virginia. My geography is horrible when it comes to the East Coast, but you've got to get into the Flatwood Monster. There's an Amazon. There's a beautiful documentary about it on Amazon. You've got to watch it.
The Flatwood Monsters?
The Flatwoods Monster, bro. That is one of the best. It's my daughter's favorite. Every time she's like, "Dad, can we watch the Flatwoods Monster?" Because she loves it. She loves that one because it's like this big robot that these kids were running from. They were, scared of it, and the whole town, half the town saw it and ran out of there. Great, a great event as far as just part of the lore. I love it. One of my personal favorite when it comes to those types is the Kelly Hopkinsville encounter, the Goblin invasion. This is where a family in Hopkinsville was shooting at these goblins, right, for an entire night. And they would hit them, but they would just, bounce away, and then they'll just come back. And this just happened all night. So I think Anomalous does an excellent job of illustrating what that looked like. Whoever he paid to do that, he's got to keep those guys, because those guys did a beautiful job.
Heck?
You gotta watch that one. You have to watch that one tonight, specifically you. Watch that tonight,
bro.
On Think Anomalous.
This whole conversation we're having is gonna give me nightmares, dude. I'm gonna be looking at too much craziness.
If my daughter can handle it, you can.
All right, actually, you know what? Yeah, okay, you're right. Oh man.
Next one, you have to look. The Rendlesham Forest incident, 1980, was a United States Air Force base in England, where they the whole Air Force base was like chasing, this UFO landed and they had an interaction with it. Incredible story. You definitely got to look into that one. The Tehran UFO incident of 1976. I think the pilot died. He was killed chasing a UFO.
Whoa.
The Solway Firth spaceman of 1964, where it's the famous picture with the spaceman behind the little girl. It takes a weird twist.
Yeah,
I love that one. It takes a weird twist when you actually hear that nuclear, was it a nuclear? No, it was I think it was a nuclear reactor saw that spaceman. They said they saw that spaceman on their camera, on their security cameras around the same time that was going on. So that was just a weird, odd situation that you really can't even explain, right? It has no practical way of explaining it. Another one of my favorites was, of course, the Washington, D.C. UFO sighting in 1952. You also have the Hudson River UFO incident, the Shag Harbor UFO crash. Phoenix Lights are important. Phoenix Lights have some really good documentaries about them. Well, this was during 1997, so we were all alive, right? We were all kids. I remember to this day seeing this on the news when it went down, and you know what it made me think about? We are the ones. That's the feeling that I got. We are the ones, and I was just a kid, and I was like, dude, this is amazing. This is going down. We're getting a taste of, and I'm a kid, but this is during the sightings days, and
right.
We're getting bombarded with all these events. So the Phoenix Lights, they have really good documentaries about it, about the people who saw it and how upset they were that they, didn't get real explanation and they were told what they didn't really experience. The Betty and Barney Hill abduction, 1961, is the most famous abduction besides Walter. If Betty passed away much later than her husband. Her husband died a couple of years after 3 or 4 years after the abduction. But Betty Hill, she did interviews for many, many years. In fact, she knew she got an opportunity. She had an opportunity to talk to Travis Walton.
Wow!
And she gave him a lot of advice about how to handle himself in terms of talking to people and interviews and movies. She was like, dude, don't let them, turn you into like a parody. Don't make them. He said it was on the Joe Rogan. He talked about how so if you listen to the Joe Rogan podcast in his latest interview, he talks about how they had conversations together because Betty Hill was the one who drew the star map, which later, was proven to be accurate. But of course, some will argue that there's so many stars in the sky that you eventually get something right. So that's why I'm not sure who named it first, but the Zeta Reticuli, and that's why I ended up calling the Greys the Zetas later in UFO lore. It's because of Betty Hill said that that's where they said they came from.
Wow.
So that's one of the biggest incidents in my mind. You're not gonna really get anything bigger than that in terms of abductions. There's the Marphalites. The reason why I have a soft spot for the Marphalites is because King of the Hill, Dale, he loves Marphalites throughout the show. He's like, dude, I'm going Marfa. We're gonna go out there. We're gonna watch, and that I love that. It's that the Marphalites just because of him. Belgium UFO, beautiful one. My second favorite is Falcon Lake UFO. Is the Falcon Lake UFO incident with Stephen Michalak. He was burned by the UFO, and he had the pattern on his chest.
Whoa.
It was documented. He said, the UFO landed. The Unsolved Mysteries has, I think, the last really good interview with him breaking it down. But he's just a really lovable, likable teddy bear guy. And for him to experience that, you feel a little bad for him, but he also had an incredible experience. So you definitely got to do the Falcon Lake UFO with Stephen Michalak. So those are sort of my top ones, but you can go on and on and on and on.
Oh, dude, I bet, dude. I was like, holy crap, dude. That's a freaking plethora of favorites, man. It's crazy. well, dude, I asked a bunch of my friends to send me some questions to ask you, and a couple of people. Actually, what's funny is Alicia listens to this podcast. It's called the Mile Higher podcast, if you're familiar with them, and they get into everything. Pretty much, I mean, I'd probably say pretty much everything that you're into. And and Alicia asked, what kind of aliens do you believe in? The Greys or Nordic, or do you think they're all pretty much all the same?
So, just to clarify, I'm not an authority, right? It's just me being kind of exposed to this for a long time.
Yeah.
There's been plenty enough people to point to some sort of Nordic experience that it seems a legitimate concern that represents the lore legitimately. So that's something that it's got to be taken, for lack of a better term, seriously. The Greys, of course, right? There's no short of Greys. There are reports of Greys before Greys were a popular thing. Who also reported being in contact with a Grey long before people knew about it?
Who's that?
Was this guy's name is the most wicked man to ever live. What's his name? Is his name is Aleister Crowley. Aleister Crowley is he's an occultist, magician, poet, painter. He's considered he's part of a lot of different secret societies way back in the day. Then Jack Parsons followed him. You got to look into Jack Parsons. So this goes into the rabbit hole of secret societies in terms of people who were very influential in other ways. But Aleister Crowley was one of the people who reported that he was in contact and he drew a Grey long before people knew what Greys were.
Wow.
So, yeah, I definitely think of Grey. And there's also, thank you for even reminding me that there's also one more that I have to point out, which his name is Norman Berggren. He passed away in 2016, but he has an interview. He wrote a book called The Ringmakers of Saturn. He worked for NASA before it was called NASA, and he has a respectable. He's a real NASA engineer, and he said that he had an opportunity. He came across photos of some black aliens. He said they were, and you can find that. You can look up Norman Berggren, and he said he saw there were pictures in NASA that they had covered up from the Viking satellite that showed. He said like 7-8 foot tall black, like they look like almost like darker than Africans, like black aliens. So So there's apparently, depending on who you ask, something that represents a little bit of everything. So
Yeah.
you got to keep your mind open,
Oh,
to really get
sure.
into this stuff. You definitely do.
Yeah, because there was like, I don't know. At least she's having a good time with it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of tease her. I'm like, you're getting too deep into it, but no, she's having a good time with it. But yeah, she would show me like a picture of what people
Mm-hmm.
think or what they look like Greys and Nordic and
Right.
like reptilian or whatever. But
Right.
it's interesting.
Right.
Yeah, she was that was her take on it. But dude, the person that wrote down a lot is my cousin
Okay.
Chucky, and he has had some like uh from what I've listened to, dude. I remember. I can't remember I don't know if it was a holiday. I can't remember why we were all hanging out, but we were
Mm-hmm.
in our living room, and it was like my brother and my cousin, and my other cousin lives next door, my cousin Elliot, and they were talking about experiences that they've had, like paranormal, like
Mm-hmm.
ghosts and everything like that. And I
Right.
think he told me that he was typing out a crazy story, and he goes, "No, I want to save it for another time." So he goes, "I want to just send you some questions," uh, but he was asking if you've ever seen a ghost, or what are your thoughts on like the orbs and digital photos? If
Yeah,
you
for me, I've never seen a ghost, and I'm glad I haven't. I'm terrified of such a thing, right? Like I don't want to
dude,
experience anything
I don't
like that,
want
bro.
to
Like
either, dude.
I don't want to. But no, I've never
Uh,
seen anything like that. But yeah, I mean, if you watch those, those ghost catching shows, there's clearly, you
that's
know,
that's one of the other things
if
he says. But yeah, go for it.
what I think is important about these ghost shows, they put things into perspective. That hauntings, the way that you experience them on the movies and real purported hauntings that went on, it's like clearly they're not as just a front as they show them on movies. Like there's got to be a psychological aspect to some of it.
Mm,
Like there's a movie called I don't know if you've ever seen this. It's one of my favorite movies to ever talk about when it comes to haunting, and it's not the Poltergeist, right? But it's which is also based on a real situation. Except in the Poltergeist movie, it was based on them being on a Native American burial ground.
right,
Well,
right.
the real story was, and this really happened, was based on being on a African slave. They built a apartment complex on a former African slave uh, uh, cemetery. So
Oh,
that's where they kind of that got that whole kind of concept from. They just turned it into Native
oh
American
wow.
uh, ritual area. So uh, yeah, like, but there's got to be a psychological aspect to it. I mean, if you can't just walk into a haunted house and make stuff happen,
Right.
clearly, there's psychological, there's the sense of energy that you have to supply it, and you're just not going to get it from going in there with your chest out. And that's a whole nother thing, right? It's just like that's we can dedicate a whole nother show to that, but I'm glad I've
Right.
never experienced it. I have no desire to,
Yeah.
but I have experienced UFOs. That's something I have experienced, and that was by choice.
You know what, man? I actually want you to tell that story, but I kind of want you to save that for
We're gonna save it. We're gonna
okay,
save it.
because
We're gonna
pretty
save
much you gave. Oh my gosh, dude, you gave a lot of information out, just
it.
so
Right.
people can just gives it helps
And
them dive right in,
ingest
and
it.
right. Um, but some dude, he has quite a bit for you, so this is gonna be fun. What movie or movies best represents real world paranormal experience?
Well, what aspect of paranormal? I mean, just all of it.
All of it. We'll just say yeah, sure.
Uh, we talked about from an alien's perspective. Real situations. I kind of pointed out how which movies are based on real things, but one of the most important ones I think, of course, is The Day the Earth Stood Still.
Mm,
If that represents a lot of what is really possible, right? You're gonna have from what I understand, everything I've learned, they can look just as normal as you and me, but superior. Humans on Earth, we reflect the fact that we're not the healthiest looking beings. Apparently, they are perfect. So if you can imagine a 7 to 12 foot tall, and you got to get into the ancient alien stuff too. So once you kind of put all that together, you'll realize that we're talking about a very superior looking race of human beings from other planets and who have contributed to our existence nonetheless. But we look a little bit different. We're surviving down here. We're not living.
Yeah.
So one of my favorite films as far as like ghosts is and my mom put me on this when I was really young. It's called the Entity, and it's from 1982, and it's a beautiful movie about a woman who was
Oh,
you know about the Entity, right?
yeah.
I
Yes.
think it does a good job of talking about the psychological aspects of being haunted. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's not all about just being your house is just being, being haunted by old ghosts, which is I assume might be possible. But there's also a psychological aspect to it that gives it that feed. So, but the true story behind it is also just as inspiring as the movie. So it
Dude.
just really depends. Like, there's no movie all these movies are going to, Travis Walton's movie Fire in the Sky.
Ugh, terrible.
He explains how it wasn't, the experience was nothing like they showed in the movie. They had to exaggerate it to make it more understandable because his experience was just weird, right? And you were talking about Communion, which is Whitley
Dude.
Strieber, the real guy who it really happened to. What I love about him, he goes, I don't know who the hell what's his name was playing, but it wasn't me, right? Because he's just that movie is my mom loves that movie, by the way. She's the one who put me on that movie. She's like,
Communion?
dude, the Communion. Yeah,
Oof.
yeah.
Man.
She loves it. She loves it. She's like, hey, I want to watch it. I want to watch it. And I'm like, dude, the movie's too much, man. Like Christopher Walken is just if
Oh,
I would
dude.
never want Christopher Walken to play me ever. He's just too intense. He's just too
Dude,
out
his
there.
eyes, man.
Right,
His
right.
eyes, oh, dude, spooky. Yeah, dude. And it's so weird. From what I remember, dude, the last time I seen it was probably when, dude, I don't know when the last time I watched it. It might have been in the 90s. I don't know. But, dude,
Right, right,
I
right,
just,
right.
the only thing I remember from that movie was like, he's talking to a psychiatrist or a hypnotist, one of the two, I can't remember. And, dude,
Mm,
he like turns and starts explaining what he's seen, and then he
right,
sees like one of those grays like poking its little head out
right,
and staring at him.
right.
Oh, dude, it's terrifying. Just thinking about it, like, dude, it's so weird dude, even now, dude, I don't want to. Actually, no, I am gonna. This is supposed to be therapeutic, right? Kind of open up and
Right, right. Go
spill your
ahead.
fears a little bit. But like, I think that's the reason why I don't like being in the dark. Because Alicia is
Mm.
always like, dude, you leave every light on. Why? You know?
You
And
don't want to see that. Yeah.
dude, it's just a compilation of movies that I've seen, whether it's like Nightmare on Elm Street or Communion or
Right.
whatever it is that freaked me out as a kid.
Sticks
Like
to you.
dude,
Yeah.
I just don't want that peekaboo moment, right?
Right,
And
right.
I think
Same
that
here.
freaks me out. It's so weird, dude. It's so weird, but yeah, man, it's
One
ugh,
movie I have to throw in before I forget. That's really based on real purported incident, which is Close Encounters of the Fourth Kind.
the fourth
Now, this
kind.
is
The
third.
f-
Am I right or wrong? Like I
Wait,
always get it mixed up.
with Richard Dreyfuss.
It's third kind, right? Third
Yeah.
kind. You're right.
Oh no,
1977.
because there is a fourth kind. That's on Amazon, dude. It's kind of a bad movie. But go ahead.
The
That's what I'm
the
saying.
original
Do you see what I'm saying?
third
I'm
kind.
watching those. I'm watching those Titanic twos, man. I'm telling you,
Right,
dude.
right.
Bringing it back. Go
Yeah.
for it.
The $30 movie. No, but the
Ugh.
third kind
Right.
is to put it in perspective, Alan Hynek, the physicist who was a part of Project Blue Book, who mostly believed that aliens weren't real. He explained away most sightings. He ended up becoming a believer after a while. Like
Wow.
after he saw so much and had access to certain information and certain events, he was like, "Dude, this stuff is real." He was a technical advisor for this movie for Close Encounters of the Third Kind, and it's supposed to be based on what's purported to be a hoax of certain military guys being sent to another planet. You know how the movie goes, but it's supposed
Right.
to be based in a way on a real events, which are also claimed to be hoaxes. and that also involves Richard Doty, also the guy I told you about. So rabbit hole. So you definitely gotta really get into that one if you really want to get the whole story that represents real events, because Alan Hynek was a part of it. You can't let Alan Hynek go over your head.
Dude, you know what movie? I mean, I don't think it represents real world paranormal experience, but dude, there was a movie. I guess it's more on the was it cryptics or cryptids? What are they called?
Mm-hmm.
What is it? Am I pronouncing cryptics? Is that right?
Cryptic, yeah,
Cryptid.
cryptozoology
Right.
is the whole subject, but yeah, yeah.
Right. Dude, there's a movie that was on Netflix. And dude, you know me, man. Going back to it, I don't care if the cover looks cool or whatever, or if the title's dumb, I'm going in. And
Right.
dude, there was a movie that I watched and I turned a lot of people onto it. It's called The Troll Hunter.
Mm.
Dude, you ever seen that?
No, but I'm
Dude,
aware of it, of that
dude,
sort of concept.
it's great. It's a kind of like a found footage
Hmm.
movie, and dude, there's this dude in the film that's like a who's like a there's these two kids that are filming a documentary, and
Right.
and they've heard about this guy who goes out in the woods or and looks for trolls or whatever, and dude, they meet up, and dude, this dude that's the troll hunter, dude, he's like he's I almost look at him as like what's his name, Steve Irwin. Dude, he's like the
Hmm.
crocodile hunter, just this not like happy to be out there, but he looks like almost
Right.
like the opposite of Steve Irwin. Like, dude probably got his
Mm.
arm bit off or something. Like he's seen some stuff.
Right.
So the whole movie
Right.
is
Right.
like, I don't know. I almost think that like if I went out to, I think they're in sweet. To be honest, honestly, I don't know where they're at. They're definitely in another country. It's all in captions, but like I almost feel like that movie can be tied into like a paranormal experience, like going out and like searching for trolls out in the forest or something like that. Because dude, the
Right.
ones that they run into, oh dude, I'm good, man. That's also one of those movies where it's like, dude, I don't want to go out on a hike like alone or out in the woods and meeting something like
Right.
that, like freaking 9 foot tall and crushing you or whatever. Dude, it's freaky. Highly recommend Troll Hunter. I don't know if it's on Netflix or anything like that. But is that even,
I'll
are
check
they
it out.
considered cryptics? Cryptid? What? How do you
In a
pronounce
way,
that?
well, cryptozoology is more
Crypto.
about purported, animals that are not a part of the normal species line that we are aware of.
Right.
But if you want to talk about really weird, so that reminds me of the real incident called the Zaragoza Goblin, where a goblin haunted this house, and it was screaming and yelling, and they could never find the goblin. Like the whole town got involved in trying to figure out why this thing is screaming, where it's coming from, and they never found it. So
Oof.
that was in 1934. So that's another kind of situation like that. But uh, also, if we talk about cryptozoology, one of the most important cryptozoology that connects UFOs is the Mothman prophecy. So that movie is important to see, starring Richard Gere, and that's one of my mom's favorites too. She loves
Oh
that movie too.
wow.
So definitely based on real events about this Mothman creature in Virginia that people would see, and typically it would be around right before a bad event, so it was considered like an omen to see it. But it
Right.
also connects kind of like UFOs. Virginia is a UFO hotspot. It's so weird. It reminds me of Erie, Indiana, that TV show from the 90s. That's kind of Virginia when I think about it.
Dude, I actually worked out there 2 years ago. They sent me out there.
Really, what'd you think? What'd you think?
Oh, dude, it was beautiful. It was a trip.
Nice.
Yeah, it really tripped me out. I don't know what I was expecting when I was going out there, but it was
You
like,
should have went Bigfoot hunting.
come on, dude. Big. Well, that's the thing. It's and dude, that's one of the things he asks. Like, he goes, everyone knows about Bigfoot and Loch Ness,
Hmm.
uh, the chupacabra, right?
Champagne, yeah, Lake
He
Champagne.
goes, what are some other obscure cryptids listeners should know about? The Mothman, I'm guessing. You said the
Yeah,
Mothman.
Mothman. He's important because he kind of ties in different, strange things going on. But X Files really did a good job of that back in the day because they did the Jersey Devil, who was a really cool one, based on a lot of lore from way back in the 1800s. There was the dinosaur. What's funny about the dinosaur? I can't remember the name of it in Africa, but in Congo. But what's his name tells a story about it. I think he was on Joe Rogan podcast where he says he went looking for it, and
Whoa.
it was an incredible story about how he just got screwed over trying to look for this thing and lost. And I don't even want to tell the story, but it's a great story. I think it was David Cho who told that story.
Oh,
Maybe.
okay, okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
He said he went to try to go look for it until it got to a point where it had to be David Cho because he's an artist. But he got to a point where he had to give up because it just got too crazy. So the dinosaur was one of them. The Thunderbird was another one that I used
Oh,
to chase, look all over the internet for back in the day. Because if you were in the UFOs, you were into cryptozoology. So the Thunderbird was an American, Native American lore about a bird that was massive, and sometimes explained as possibly like a UFO. Um, Also, you have to think about the what's the name of that? The changing the Native American lore about changing from man to animal.
oh
There's that
shoot.
area. What was that called? They even have Nightwolf from Mortal Kombat. He's based on that whole.
Oh yeah.
Um, yeah, he's based on that whole lore there. But there was a ranch. Was it Stalker Ranch?
Oh, Skinwalker.
Um, Skinwalker Ranch. Yeah, Skinwalker Ranch. I think is probably the most strangest possible. If you can watch 100 documentaries about it, still not know what the hell it was going on. Like, what are they
Oh,
talking about? Because it's got UFOs, it's got orbs, just like your buddy was talking about. All of it is just in one place, and the whole place just seems to be alive, a hot spot. It almost seems like it's a portal, if you will. It
oh
just
wow.
never ends with the amount of brain explosion type events that are purported to go on there, and nobody can ever catch anything going on. It's just a weird place overall. So Skinwalker Ranch is probably my favorite when it comes to cryptozoology being mixed in with all the other forms of and that one, it's a very old one, but it's gained traction. It's got real recognition over the past 10 years, and I think that's really good.
Yeah.
Probably my favorite one.
A My cousin also asks, "What are your thoughts on the Mandela effect?"
So the Mandela effect, yeah, I'm not too big, but instead of looking at the Mandela effect, I think a better effect is really. So you remember I mentioned the Mandela effect. I think is really the closest I can get to it is what I talked about when I said Project Looking Glass.
Mm.
So I don't think that you're living in a universe where everything changed, but you could always kind of play with messing with time travel. Most people don't know about Tudor. His name was
John
Tudor.
Tudor.
Time travel.
Yeah.
John Tudor. Yeah, like now he goes way back in the day. I remember, like I was following it when it was like hot, when he was posting stuff. Guy, whoever it was posting stuff. So, and, I don't, a lot of people use things where it's like, we remember it as this, and it's just like, no, we just don't remember it as that. It's just that happens. That's the way the brain works.
Right.
We kind of lodge things in there the wrong way, and we do it on a mass level because there's tricky names, there's tricky words. But I do love butterfly effect and the chaos theory, where small things eventually contribute to larger events. So that goes
Right.
into synchromysticism. And I remember when I got you into synchromysticism, I think I really messed you up then. And I was like, bro, we need to talk about synchromysticism. You were like, bro, you came back to me the next day like, I don't know if we can talk about that again. You were just like really like, nah, no more.
That sounds about right,
and
dude.
I'm and the reason why, into your buddy, and tell him I told him to get into synchromysticism because I'm very proud of it, because I was, unlike most things, events, or conspiracies that have been around way before my time, I was there day one. I was a part of it. I was involved in sort of the art of synchromysticism, which is all about taking symbology that you see in mundane places and it contributing to real events. So I don't want to go into explanation around, but for him specifically, I told him to check out synchromysticism. I was involved with Jake Coates. Sea Lion was his YouTube channel, and just go back to the original videos and you'll have fun. Your buddy, he will have fun. I will guarantee it. This is his type of thing. Listening to the type of things. So I remember when I gave you, it wasn't Jake Coates. Remember when I showed you the the Back to the Future videos, and I was like, bro, look at this guy.
Dude, that effed me
and
up, man.
You were done. You were like totally done.
That just gone. And then I still remember that video you sent me about the Nintendo 64 logo, and it dips into like the Super Mario Brothers cartoon and DuckTales. Oh, dude.
Right. That's Jake Coates. Steve Wilner, he has to get into Steve Wilner. So, I'm very proud of the fact that, that all that symbolism, Stargate stuff, all that stuff, that was 2007 to 2009, which was the high point of my, my personal conspiracy career, in terms of just really being into something. That's literally the rabbit hole. It literally involves Alice in Wonderland and taking magic mushrooms and the red pill, the blue pill. That's the real thing, and I'm really honored to have been a part of that event. So definitely tell them to do that,
dude. Going back to ghosts and I guess spirits, what is something a person should never do when interacting with the spirit realm? But I guess you said you haven't really dealt with too much in terms of like ghosts and spirit realm, but
yeah, that's my thing, right? Don't. I mean, if you want to go that route, right? If that's what you're into, bro, like you got more balls than me because I'm not doing that. I might
have to have a conversation with them. Yeah.
And, there's definitely there's definitely a lot of YouTube channels out there where they're listening in and talking, and they really get off on talking to people who like recently died, big celebrities, and they'll talk to them. How are you? What are you doing? It's weird, and it's always been purported. Even if you read the Bible, they talk about how to deal with ghosts. And when I was studying from a theological perspective, I was like, do they believe in ghosts, right? And when it's in there, right? I remember Job, he talks about having nightmares, and because he's being tortured by ghosts. So it's always been around. So I wouldn't recommend that anybody play with that. It's again one of those situations where you're playing with fire.
Sure. Right. There you go. Aliens from outer space or other dimensions, or both.
So, I remember when the movie it really took a turn for that angle when Indiana Jones, the Crystal Skulls came out. That's when that theory became popular. When the whole they're from another dimension, they're not from another. But then there was a book that I had many years ago called Beyond the Fourth Dimension too. But for the most part, other planets, right? But then there's also purport of other dimensions. But then again, we get into the whole, what is another? How do you define another dimension? So I don't like to go into that because it's really becomes very open to interpretation. It's very metaphysical, and metaphysical has its own sort of belief systems from culture to culture. So I'm not the type of guy who does, like, you won't have me sitting there saying you got to put your energy, you got to use. I don't like to use that term because it's very loosely and it's taken in broadly. People interpret it different ways. So I like to be as straightforward as possible. So when we talk about aliens from different dimensions, you have 10 people, imagining what another dimension is 10 different ways and what that means in different ways. Well, I do believe that it's possible that they don't necessarily have human bodies per se, but again, there goes a goblin, I think is a very perfect representation of something that's there but you can't see, and that's possible. But the term dimension, I don't like to use that term because I feel like we're playing with words sort of ignorantly. So I like to try to work with what we do. We can, be a little bit more fixated on.
Oh, there you go. I was kind of curious what you're going to say about that, but that's good. These ones are general, dude. I got to start this one off because you and I are about to go off on this. But right. It's what are your favorite movie comedies featuring paranormal, aliens, cryptics, and then going into favorite fictional TV series. We're gonna blend that all into one. Dude, I want to start it off. And I remember you and I bonded over this movie. Conheads.
Man, that's a classic, bro. Hey, I feel bad for kids. They don't know about Conheads, bro.
Hey, dude. And you know what's crazy? And we've talked about this before. And my favorite scene in the entire movie was when Dude, he does the fireworks show,
I think
bro.
that's the peak of the whole movie,
Hey,
bro. Is when he
man,
does
that part trips me out. And dude, I can tell you, man, I'm so glad you just get just a glimpse of
that.
what everyone sees, because I can't even
Right,
imagine what they saw. Dude, that was probably just a they're probably like, dude, what the hell?
bro. When you mention that movie, I want to shed a little bit of a tear because Chris
Oh
Farley. Chris
yeah,
Farley is one of my
one of the
number
greatest.
one, the greatest, and I love that guy so much. Any chance I
Mm,
get when I talk to Janae about it, I'm like, dude, you don't understand how much I love Chris Farley and how much I
yeah,
miss
man.
him being able to just make us laugh. And he's in that movie.
Oh,
That's
dude,
so
he's
important
great.
to me.
Yeah.
It's like the universe knew we needed that for
Mm.
him to be in that. So yeah, definitely, bro. I mean, Ghostbusters too. You got to give it to Ghostbusters.
Oh
They gave
yeah,
us.
dude, Dan Aykroyd
I
again.
hey, Dan Aykroyd killed it, bro.
Mm-hmm.
Killed it. Killed it. You know, just an incredible film. It's always going to be, and that's when kids are going to know about. Whereas, like, Coneheads, they may not. It goes over their head. Like sometimes I don't even remember that movie, but Ghostbusters is one. They're still making Ghostbusters, so
Oh yeah.
100% that one. It's hard for me to think about. It's very hard for me to think about comedy films and shows that involve paranormal. I think I'm drawing a bit of a blank, but I mean it's a part of TV culture. Like it's there. It's always going to be
Yeah.
there. I mean, every other show has that stuff in it because it's funny when you can sort of take something that's so intense and scary and have a lot of fun with it. So
Yeah.
definitely, it's very easy for me to enjoy that sort of genre.
Yeah, like a big one for me was Paul, the movie Paul. That was like,
Okay.
right, and it had to do with I guess a gray, an
Hmm.
alien crash landing, and then him just feeding off all this information to people, and like Spielberg stealing his ideas. Like it all kind of ties in,
Right.
different pop culture, and yeah, I love. And plus, I mean, it's Simon Pegg and Nick Frost, dude. Anything that they do,
Right.
I'm all in. I love their films. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
but oh
Yeah. That
man,
was a hilarious movie. That
damn,
was a hilarious movie.
comedies, man. That's kind of like that's a I don't know, man. I mean, that's open for discussion. I would think like Coneheads would be in the top tier because it was just so silly.
Paul is. I'm glad you mentioned Paul because it really drove into what we could imagine. The way we are so lax in our thinking and the way our culture is. We go, dude, if an alien was just walking around here, wouldn't he be more like that instead of like this stiff, uptight, you know, very structured sort of thinker? So
Yeah,
I think they really had a lot of fun with that concept, and I think it's easy to watch that to get into UFOs and still respect the subject.
right, right. Yeah, it was
But I
definitely.
draw a blank. I got to leave that to you. I
Yeah,
got to leave that
no,
to
dude.
you.
I mean, I'm really trying to think. I mean, if you think about it, like, dude, Fire in the Sky, scary.
Yeah,
Uh,
scary. Yeah,
very right. Communion, scary.
right.
Dude, The Arrival,
Scary.
both
Yeah,
Charlie Sheen and the new one that came out, right? I mean, both of those
the
movies
arrival was
are
good.
right. Both of
That was
them.
good.
I mean, even though
Yeah.
the Charlie Sheen one's pretty silly, but like the one where the
Right.
UFO just lands and then they go up into the ship and they see
Hmm.
the spoilers, see all these octopus people, but like, dude, it's a trip, dude, and it freaks me out. Uh,
I didn't see the second. I just saw the first. Just saw the first.
oh, you mean the Charlie Sheen second one?
Yeah, the
I
Charlie
did,
Sheen one is really good.
yeah, I didn't see the second one either, dude. There's a movie called Area 51, and that one's a found footage, also, and that one's really cool.
I think I've seen it. I have to check again, but I think
Yeah,
I've seen
dude,
it.
they go into the ship, and they like
Yeah,
and
I saw it. I saw it.
everything's like you can see through the ship or whatever, but they can't see you. I don't know. It's really
Right.
weird. But
It
dude,
was a trippy. It was a trippy movie.
you know what's crazy, man? It's like I feel like I've learned a lot from Twilight Zone, but like the one
Hmm.
thing that, and I don't know, there's a lot of people that like it because it's like action or whatever, but it's actually to me it's pretty sad. But like District 9, that was like one of the one movies
Yeah.
that hits kind of hard where it's like, dude, this ship might have almost like pulling over to the side of the road. That's the way I
Hmm.
looked at it. It's like, dude, they pulled over to the side of a planet to like park or whatever it may be. Who knows why? And then
Right.
we decided to go infiltrate their vehicle, their ship, and then do their, I don't know, and put them in like in a almost like a concentration camp type thing, which was rough. But it's like, I don't know, that movie was by far that was I don't know. Dude, I remember when that movie came out, dude, I watched it like 2 or 3 times in the theater, and going back to when we first started about how we want puppeteering and everything else, dude, that's the type of CGI that I would want to see in a film. To where if I went to, South Africa, Johannesburg, I would think that I would see the prawns there.
And the problem,
right?
Well, the issue is with that movie is that it's one of those analogy movies, right? Like Avatar. It's really trying to talk about real issues, but they're using sort of aliens as a placeholder for you to kind of think about it. So, like you said, it's sad, and then you start thinking about what's really going on in Johannesburg, the apartheid, and people talk about it. So it's really one of those movies that kind of pulls you in with the action, the adventure, and the sci-fi, but they're trying to kind of zone in on a real issue. But that movie I thought was kind of close to a comedy. Just the way the action is played out, it's so hilarious.
Okay, I got you. Right. Yeah, I can see that.
He's like screaming half the time. I mean, it's like things on his face. I got to see it again, but I remember laughing throughout half the movie.
Dude, the lead, man, he was great. Anything that guy's in. I mean, dude, I haven't watched that movie. I love it when a plan comes together. What's that show called? The A-Team. I mean, he was in the A-Team. I had to watch the movie because he was in it, and it's like,
I didn't watch it yet.
Oh, dude, anything that actor's in, I forget his name. Dude, I was known by Vicus, but yeah, he's one of a kind. I love all of the stuff that he puts out too. But but for TV. Dude, I don't know, and I feel bad, but dude, I've only seen like a handful of X-Files. I wasn't really deep into it, but I've seen a few. But I mean, for you, I mean, dude, sightings. I mean, it sounds like you watched the majority of the X-Files.
X-Files, I saw them all. I literally, because I remember they had them on. Like I watched it as a kid, right? Sure. But I remember I had a 13-inch TV, a 12-inch TV, so it was like standing right in front of it trying to watch it, and it was like all these dark scenes back then, and I had an antenna, and you're like really trying to figure out what's going on. But when they really put it on Netflix years later, I remember just binge watching every single episode.
I think I need to do that too.
It's definitely worth it because when they came out with the new one, I really had fun with the new one also. So when they did they brought it out last couple of years, I really liked that. Had some good. They still stayed true. Although they add a little bit more funniness to it, but they always kind of did that even in the past, but it made it more funny. I still had a lot of fun watching it and reliving my childhood with that show, but Sightings was just terrifying because Sightings had, not just UFOs, but of course ghosts and possession. It was a terrifying show that I would watch on the weekend when my parents would go to bed and I would just be in the living room, like you said, looking around every corner and and it was in a house. We're moving in this house that was big and it was weird and the backyard had this foresty look. And it just it terrified me. Yeah. But I have fun being terrified every weekend watching it.
Dude, that just you saying that reminds me of this 80s movie called Invasion from Mars. You ever seen that? Dude.
Let's see if I think that's based on it's based on the 1953 film, which I used to watch all the time, where they would just fall into the sand. Oh man, that still gets me to this day. Yeah, I remember that. It messes me up to this day. Like I remember watching it a few months ago just to be like, was it really that scary? Right? Like I was terrified as a kid, and I watched it. I'm like, yeah, I'm still pretty terrified.
Yeah, dude, it's weird, dude. And here's the weird thing, dude. I told Alicia to watch Fire in the Sky. I was like, hey, just so you know, hey, I had a real hard time. Like, dude, I gave her I was very vulnerable, dude. I was like, hey, look, dude, I was frightened for a long time because of this movie. Like, I didn't want to go to sleep. I was scared. And I just big time opened up to her about it. I was like, dude, just if you want to watch it, go for it. I was like, but I really don't want to watch it again. And then, dude, she goes, okay. Dude, she watches it. And she goes, you thought that was scary? I was like, come on, dude. She goes, yeah, I watched it by myself. Da, da, da. I'm like, are you serious? So I don't know. It's like certain things, I guess maybe when you're little and if you watch it, maybe I don't know. It's like
Well,
stuff
again,
you're not supposed to
it was the
see.
time. It was the '90s. It was a lot going on when it comes to paranormal. I mean, sightings was going on. The Phoenix Lights occurred.
Hmm.
I thought at that time that we were on the verge of just an invasion, right? Like all of this stuff was happening. So when I watched that movie, first of all, the name of it scared the crap out of me. So when you're talking about fire from the sky, right? The name alone didn't take much more than just saying that name for me to be terrified. So I don't remember being extremely terrified, but I do remember just being intimidated by the movie. So I loved it even as a kid, and even now when I watch it. Well, I'm a huge Patrick Patrick Stewart fan.
Yeah.
So I'm really grateful. Not Patrick Stewart. I'm sorry, not Patrick Stewart. Who plays
Oh,
the Patrick
Robert Patrick, right?
Robert
T1000.
Patrick. T1000. Like I'm so grateful that he played the part of the best friend
Oh,
because
dude.
he's while Travis is gone, right? Most of the movie he's not even there. So you're focusing on the emotions of the team, the co-workers who are
Yes.
trying to explain that they were totally innocent. And the way Robert Patrick just shows you all of these emotions of fear, anger, confusion, frustration, guilt, just total sorrow. And then they get to the end. And I love the song. There's a song that they play at the end. You got to just watch the end when they have this conversation.
I'm
They
scared.
have a conversation at the end where, and it's already over, right? He's already back. In the end, they have a little conversation because the guy who Robert Patrick plays, he got a divorce from his wife over that incident because
Wow.
they always felt like he left the friend. They never kind of got over that, over them leaving him. So I really like at the end they have this conversation and he's like, you really, screwed me up, right? You screwed up my life, by kind of what everything that happened. But I know, I get it. But at the end, they just have a conversation. He was like, "Do you ever look up in the sky and wonder?" And he's like, "Nah." And they played this really cool, outgoing film song that I think you should listen to. It's a really beautiful um, song they added to the end. So it's a beautiful movie mainly because of the emotion. I think he should have got more awards for doing that, and hopefully I can meet Robert Patrick one day and just go, man, thank you for doing Fire in the Sky. I know he'd be like, man, what are you talking about? You don't know about no Fire in the Sky, but
Dude, he's gonna storm off. He's gonna leave. He's like, what you know about no fire escape? He's gonna leave. Oh my god. Oh, dude, that was good. That was good,
I
man.
really,
You know about no
I
fire
really,
escape.
I love that. I love that movie. I love Robert Patrick for that. Because as a kid, he was T1000. We were terrified
Oh,
of T1000.
dude,
So
because he said nothing. Dude, he just had
nothing.
this face. He just everything said it in his face, dude.
Right.
It was
Right. And
perfect role, perfect role. And dude, I really thought that somebody could run that fast. Like
right.
dude,
Exactly.
that was insane.
Chasing
Gosh,
cars and stuff.
dude, chasing freaking
Oh my,
dirt bikes, dude.
dirt bikes and trucks and everything. He just goes, you're right. And he just throws himself at stuff. And it was that time, the '90s. I don't think kids will ever be able to get the movie, sort of the blockbuster, back to back with those actors that we wanted to see, like we did in the '90s. It was just set up that way. Hollywood is different now, but it was set up in
Yeah,
a way that was just perfect.
yeah, man. Gosh. But last thing, dude. Which
Hmm.
paranormal reality shows do you watch? And in your opinion, which is the best?
I like, what I like a lot.
Oh, here it goes. Here it
I
comes.
love um and there's a reason why. I love Ghost Adventures. And the only reason I love it, right, is to get on Janae's nerves. I'll turn it up, right? And to get her, because I'll be watching it on my laptop, and I'll just go like, it'll be quiet, right? Because you know how they start off, they're like being normal, and then they'll just start screaming and panicking, and I'll just remember, and then Janae will go, "Why is he talking like that? Like, oh my god, you still watching that? Oh, I didn't know you were still watching it." And then when she just keeps throwing stuff in, I'll just watch it to troll her, and I still have so much fun with that show. It's one of my favorites just because of that. I mean, these reality shows. I'm not a fan of reality shows
Yeah,
overall
neither
because
am I.
they're made. And I remember watching. There was the other one, the other ghost show, where it was the team and they would go in there, with their chest out. They would go in people's houses and
Right.
would slap the ghost around, and it's gonna be the end of it. I can't remember the name of it, but
Was it
that was a good
Ghost Hunters?
Ghost Hunters, I think. And my parents would watch it. We would all watch it together in the living room, just to get a laugh out of it. But I think my favorite was definitely Ghost Adventures. Just to watch these three guys just have these crazy interactions, because they would act like they didn't sign up for it, right? They'll get in it, man. Why am I down here, man? I got to get out of here. And just to listen to that, I have so much fun.
Oh man.
But I mean, every documentary, when you talk about, UFO documentaries, they're built like reality shows, right? I mean, they're just in 60 minutes, but I don't think there's any UFO hunters. History Channel really tries hard to have these type of shows. There's another one called I think it's like there's a really good one. So most of the UFO shows are good. Like I haven't seen too many bad UFO shows. No matter which ones they are, they have really good tidbits. If you have the patience to sit there and watch it, they have some good stuff in them. So I can't say that, but I have most fun with those ghost chasing shows because it's just hilarious.
Dude, I like how it just like sets you off though. It just sets you
it does.
with the whole
what's
your favorite reality, paranormal reality show? And then you're just like, oh, this is it. This is the dream right here. Here it comes.
Like, what do you feel when you're sitting there watching those guys like bump into each other, right? Because they'll go, "Oh, we need to turn out all the lights, right, to make it real, right?" I'm like, "Why? Why does that make it real?" So we got to turn out all the lights. We got to use nothing but night vision, and we got to walk around. I'm like, dude, you're walking around a place that you know nothing about. Like, I don't even like walking around my own house in the dark because I might trip over something.
Bro.
And you guys are walking around hotels and
You know what's crazy, dude? Those shows remind me of man, this is rough. There's a show my dad watched, and dude, my cousin Elliot, dude, him and I are like Mystery Science 3000, whatever you call it.
Love it. My favorite show.
My dad will watch it, and there was a show called it was like Gold Hunters, whatever it's called. They would go out and dig for gold.
Right.
This like within like the past 5 years, this show, it's a reality show. It's like different people in different areas, and and dude, they keep have you ever seen it? Have you ever seen this show before? The Gold Show, the Gold Hunters, whatever they're called, where they just hunt for gold? Dude, let me tell you.
I've seen shows like this.
Dude, it is rough. It's like the narrator goes, Todd has spent most of his grandfather's fortune. He's $1 million in the hole, and if he doesn't turn up, turn up the gold, his business is gonna go bankrupt. And then, dude, hey, no joke, we watched a marathon of it. So the entire time, like, we'd go to the commercial, and my cousin and I were doing that banter with each other, but not during it, or else we'll piss off my dad. But my dad's like deep into it. And he's telling us a story about everyone like he's the neighbors across the street. Like he knows them really well. And, dude, they never turn up gold. Like they never show any gold. If anything, it's like a flake or like or whatever it is. And, dude, they spent millions of dollars trying to dig a hole into an area where they think there's going to be gold. Dude, they never find it. Right. And I feel like that those ghost hunter shows are similar to that. They build you up to this unbelievable like moment. And then the moment just doesn't exist. There's nothing there. It's like, wait.
You're thinking you missed it. I missed it, right? There was something there that I didn't see. You're like, no, there was just nothing there.
Nothing. Right? No.
But that reminds me of Matthew McConaughey. Did you see the Matthew McConaughey movie Gold? It's the same thing.
Matthew McConaughey?
Yeah, he has a movie called Gold.
Oh, Gold. No, I haven't seen that.
Yeah, it's literally that show in the movie. It's hilarious. You gotta watch it. So if you like that show and it cracks you up, you love Matthew McConaughey doing the same thing before a movie.
Dude, it's sad, man. And dude, to this day, like my cousin will do that. Well, we need to get the gold. dude, we'll just narrate. We gotta get gold, dude. It's so sad. It's so sad. Right. It's like this 18-year-old or 16-year-old kid that knows the business who's wasting his grandpa's fortune trying to find his. Oh God, look at I'm already getting into it. I'm already getting into it, dude. Like I've seen every episode, but. No, man. That's so great. Dude, we've been talking for almost 3 hours, dude.
And every minute has been fun because this is what we did, right? This is
Dude.
what we used to do every day. This is
K-
what we did every day.
Hey, before we sign off, I'm gonna tell you a freaking crazy story. Not crazy like
Yeah,
what we've been talking about, but I was gonna
yeah.
say a joke, and then I got afraid. I was like, oh shoot, I told a bunch of people this at work, and they had no clue what I was talking about. Dude, I told my coworkers about calling collect.
hmm
You remember that? Do you remember calling collect?
The concept.
Yeah, you remember it, right? Dude, I told him that. I can't remember what I said to him. I said it in a joke. I was like, yeah, it's like calling somebody collect. And then, dude, it was like crickets, bro. No laughs, dude. I bombed so hard with that joke. And then I was just like, you guys know what that is, right? And they're like, nah, what's that? Dude, I had to explain what calling collect was, right? And
Oh,
you know what I'm talking about? And dude, I told him, I was like,
yeah.
I was all, I was like, yeah, and dude, people would like, uh, what do you call it? They found a loophole on how to use it without having somebody pay for the other line,
Right,
right?
right, right.
And I remember there was a commercial that did it, and it was like the the guy and his wife are like watching TV, and he gets a phone call, he picks it up, and it's like, would you like to take a collect call from Bada 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 Boy? If you want to accept the charges, yes. And then dude, like, he goes no, and he hangs up. And then the wife goes, who was that? It was Bobby. He had a baby. It was a boy.
I remember that
Do
episode.
you
I
remember
remember
that
that commercial.
commercial? Oh,
Yeah, I do.
dude.
I do.
Dude, oh, man. I felt
Well,
old, man.
I, re-
Calling
I remember
collect.
because the reason why I remember is I remember it being an issue because like my dad didn't play with that, right? He would like if you call collect, like we would go out, we were kids, and we get stuck somewhere, run out of bus money, right? And I was like,
Yeah.
dude, you gotta call your dad, tell him to pick us up. We're in the middle of nowhere, and we had no money, so we call collect, and my dad, hey, can you pick us up? Yeah, but why are you calling collect? So it would just be this hilarious joke, about messing around with calling
Yeah.
correct.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? Like there's no issue so serious. You could be dying and it's like, yeah, I know you're dying, but why are you calling collect? So
Oh,
that was always like a hilarious
oh
thing.
God.
You're right.
Dude, because what I was gonna say was, I was like, gonna tell you, I was like, dude, we've been talking for 2.5 hours. I was like, can you imagine if I called you collect?
Yeah,
How much
yeah,
the
yeah.
charges would be? Oh my gosh, dude. And then I wanted to
I
like,
know.
I had to put the brakes. So I was like, oh, dude, this joke bombed already. I gotta make sure that that you know what I'm talking about. Oh, dude, I was so embarrassed, dude. It was like three guys in the car, and dude, we're going to Whole Foods to get lunch, and I was like, hey man, call and collect, and they're like, nothing, dude. I just hear chirps of crickets. Somebody had a cricket in the car. I was like, jeez, man.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
can't I
yeah.
can't joke with these dudes. This was great, man. This was a lot of fun. People were
Dude,
dude, and I have some friends there. I sent them the link to the 2 episodes they did prior, and they're like,
mhm.
nope, not gonna listen. I'm waiting for you to talk to your boy, dude. I'm waiting for you to talk to the UFO guy. I want some info. And I'm like, damn. So you
The
were
crazy.
dude, they don't want. I'm like, thanks, dude. Yeah, like to subscribe.
Well,
Yeah, thanks.
but the crazy thing is, I only scratch. I've got so much more. Like I'm going over my notes. Like what I was doing
Oh,
was going
dude,
through notes.
and I
I
told
had.
him that's what I told him. I was like, dude, we're gonna have multiple conversations about everything.
Right,
So, and
right, right.
I mean, dude, even the list that you gave me, I have it right here in front of me. Do we didn't even go over some of the stuff that's on here? So that's good. So we'll
It's
have,
it's definitely more content. I mean,
yeah.
dude, Philadelphia experiment, bro.
Hey,
Just,
don't,
just
that's
you know
it.
what I mean? I start
That's it, dude. That's it.
throwing stuff
Dot,
out there.
dude. Dot. That's all you gotta say.
Dot, dot, dot.
That's it,
Bro,
dude.
let me just say, man, I appreciate you inviting me. We were
Yeah,
talking
man.
about you doing this, and I was like, dude, if you do
Oh
this,
yeah,
do it, because you're the guy to do this. You have always had the personality to just really blow people away. And I was to your friends, I would say, don't worry about it always being about something like this.
yeah.
You just a fun, magnetic person,
Oh, thanks, man.
and just do it, man. Just keep doing it. And sometimes, people have like YouTube channels that don't, they'll have videos and then there'll just be this one thing. and then they'll go up to 3,000 subscribers. So just keep doing it, keep making it, because I enjoyed the first two.
Oh yeah, it's good.
Mark is hilarious. I love listening to Mark.
Hey man,
and your boy.
Some high praise has to go to Mark, man, because dude, honestly, I would get like this jolly or this high, I guess you can say, when I told people, hey man, I'm starting a podcast. Oh dude, I can't wait. Oh cool, da da da. Oh, it's gonna be whatever. Dude, then I wouldn't do it. I have no idea, dude. I just hit this wall, and I don't know what it was. I don't know if it was just insecurities or being nervous or whatever it was. Or I don't want to say shy, but I don't know. I don't know what it was. But dude, like Mark, we'll chat like on Facebook Messenger, and dude, this is like beyond silly what he says. He goes, yeah, man, I want to stop playing video games. And I'm like, oh, okay. And then he's just like, yeah, but I want to go do something else, but I can't because, because you got to stay in or whatever, or you don't have to, but be smart to. Right. And then I go, well, dude, I'm trying to start this podcast. And he's like, dude, let's do it. Let's try it out. Yeah, let's test it. I was like, dude, I remember Alicia was here, or one of her friends came over. It's like one of her best friends. And dude, like they were chit-chatting. I just usually leave her alone, and then dude, I came in here, just started messing around with some software, and then that's it, man. And dude, I got a high from it. I can't explain it. I just got this crazy high from it. I was like kind of like pacing back and forth once everything was done, and yeah, dude, I kind of want to keep that high going. And dude, I have a ton of interesting friends, and I mean, and I just, I think it'd be fun. And so far, so good. I mean, people have liked. I mean, even with Mark's, dude, our that was nothing was written down. That was just all off the cuff, nothing random. And
well, the thing about Mark, I got to throw in is I almost thought I was being biased at first because I remember, when we would close the store,
right?
It would be Mark, me, Mike, and everybody would just kind of just go at each other. That would be our time, our chance to just kind of like scream at each other, yell at each other, just having fun, saying stupid things. And we would do it all night until we were ready to go home because we were closing up the store. And Mark was that guy, we would love to be there during the closing. So I thought I had a bias, but when I heard, your boy came on, I was Will, right?
Right.
And when he came on, I listened to his. I'm like, there's no bias there. I don't know him, but I'm listening to his story, and I'm like, dude, from that day on, the whole week, I just kept saying, Grand Canyon, bro. Every day, I would randomly say Grand Canyon throughout the day, just thinking about his stories because that was an incredible story.
Dude, I didn't even know about that, and he said it no nonchalant, like, yeah, dude, our car flipped over. Anyway, but when I got there, and I'm like, whoa.
Pull the brakes, bro.
What? Literally pull the brakes, bro, because your car flipped. What the heck, dude? I had no clue, dude. We've had so many conversations about film. Unreal. Dude, long conversations. And one of my my cousin was like, dude, I was really sad when it was over. And I was like, dude, we probably could have kept going till like 2 a.m. Didn't care. But
man,
yeah, dude, it's crazy. It's crazy.
Let me know the kind of response you get. I want to be able to fix it, and it'll be better next time.
Man.
Let everybody know this is the first trial.
This is all GarageBand, dude.
Exactly.
Yeah, dude. It's all good. It's gonna get better. I'm excited, man.
Right. Thank you, man. Appreciate it, man.
Thanks for being on, dude.
Of course.
This was awesome.
Appreciate it.
How would you say it? Shalom.
Shalom, my brother. Shalom.
All right, man.
Shalom. Take care, brother.
All right, dude. Later.